This was listed on under the
Baldwin.
All right, good morning, everybody. Welcome to this regularly scheduled town board meeting. Before we begin, I'd like to just point out that September is Pediatric Cancer Awareness Month, and the international symbol for childhood cancer is the gold ribbon. So you may have noticed outside we have gold ribbons placed on lampposts throughout the town of Hempstead. In addition, our town clock tower will be illuminated in gold to bring awareness to this very important cause. I'd like to thank our partners, the Christine Renna Foundation and the Mary Wachowski Foundation, who are joining us in efforts to spread awareness of pediatric cancer. I'd also like to give a really big round of applause for our town of Hempstead EMTs and lifeguards. Town lifeguards Frank Falcone and Morgan Rinn rescued a 17-year-old woman from a riptide yesterday or Sunday, and the woman was not breathing, and due to their efforts, they saved this woman's life. So we have amazing lifeguards in the town of Hempstead. I'd like to give them For those of you who have never attended a town board meeting before, we will first have public hearings followed by an administrative calendar. There are agendas available in the rear of the pavilion. If you'd like to be heard on any matter, please fill out a slip, which you can get right by the agendas. Fill it out for anything on which you'd like to be heard and hand it over to one of our clerks, and they will bring it up to us. After the meeting is adjourned, we will remain in session to hear public comment on any other matters on which members of the public would like to address the town board. Madam Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Supervisor Gillen.
Here.
Councilman Blakeman.
Here.
Councilman Diaz-Pasito.
I'm here.
Councilman Dunn.
Here.
Senior Councilwoman Gooseby.
Here.
Councilwoman King Sweeney.
Here.
Councilman Muscarella.
Here.
I now ask Senior Councilwoman Gooseby to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Everybody please rise.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, Madam Clerk, will you please call our first public hearing?
Proposed local law regarding regulations and restrictions to limit parking in Baldwin, Belmore, Merritt, Roosevelt, Uniondale, Wantagh, and West Hempstead.
I do not have any slips on this public hearing. Is there anyone who'd like to be heard? Hearing none, may I have a motion?
Supervisor, I move the hearing be closed and the item adopted.
Madam Clerk?
Supervisor Gilman.
Aye.
Councilman Blakeman.
Aye.
Councilman Diaz-Pasito.
Aye.
Councilman Dunn.
Aye.
Senior Councilwoman Gooseby.
Aye.
Councilwoman King Sweeney.
Aye.
Councilman Muscarella.
Aye.
Madam Clerk, please call the next public hearing.
Proposed local law regarding parking or standing prohibitions in Baldwin, Belmore, near Bethpage, near Cedarhurst, Franklin Square, North Merrick, near Valley Stream, near Westbury, and West Hempstead.
I do not have any slips on this public hearing. Is there anyone who'd like to be heard? Hearing none, may I have a motion?
Supervisor, I move that the public hearing be closed and that the local law be adopted.
Second.
Madam Clerk?
Supervisor Gilman.
Aye.
Councilman Blakeman.
Aye.
Councilman Diaz-Pasito.
Aye.
Councilman Dunn.
Aye.
Senior Councilwoman Gooseby.
Aye.
Councilwoman King Sweeney.
Aye.
Councilman Muscarella.
Aye.
Madam Clerk, please call the next public hearing.
Proposed local law regarding arterial stops in Baldwin, Belmore, near East Rockaway, Elmont, Levittown, near Westbury.
I do not have any slips of this public hearing. Is there anyone who'd like to be heard? Hearing none, may I have a motion?
Supervisor, I move the hearing be closed and the item adopted.
Second.
Madam Clerk?
Supervisor Gillen?
Aye.
Councilman Blakeman? Councilman Diaz-Padrino?
Aye.
Councilman Dunn?
Aye.
Senior Councilwoman Gooseby? Councilwoman King Sweeney? Councilman Muscarella?
Yeah, he's ready but I didn't.
Madam Clerk, please call the next public hearing.
Proposed local law regarding bus stops in Belmore.
What is this?
I do not have any slips on this public hearing. Is there anyone who'd like to be heard? Hearing none, may I have a motion?
I move that the hearing be closed and the item adopted.
Madam Clerk?
Supervisor Gillen?
Aye.
Councilman Blakeman?
Aye.
Councilman Diaz-Padrino?
Aye.
Councilman Dunn?
Aye.
Senior Councilwoman Gooseby? Councilwoman King Sweeney?
Aye.
Councilman Muscarella?
Madam Clerk, please call the next public hearing.
Proposed local law regarding traffic regulations in the vicinity of schools in Oceanside.
I do not have any slips on this public hearing. Is there anyone who'd like to be heard? Hearing none, may I have a motion?
I move that the public hearing be closed and the local law adopted.
Second.
Madam Clerk?
Supervisor Gillen?
Aye.
Councilman Blakeman?
Aye.
Councilman Diaz-Padrino?
Aye.
Councilman Dunn?
Aye.
Senior Councilwoman Gooseby? Councilwoman King Sweeney?
Aye.
Councilman Muscarella?
Aye.
Madam Clerk, please call the next public hearing.
Proposed local law regarding prohibition of left turns in or near Westbury.
I do not have any slips on this public hearing. Is there anyone who'd like to be heard? Hearing none, may I have a motion?
Motion to close and adopt the item.
Second.
Madam Clerk?
Supervisor Gillen?
Aye.
Councilman Blakeman?
Aye.
Councilman Diaz-Padrino?
Aye.
Councilman Dunn?
Aye.
Senior Councilwoman Gooseby? Councilwoman King Sweeney?
Aye.
Councilman Muscarella?
Aye.
Madam Clerk, please call the next public hearing.
Proposed local law regarding assault upon town of Hempstead enforcement officials.
I have a slip from Felix Procacci on this hearing.
Felix Procacci. First, I'd like to know, how does this law differ than from existing New York State law that defines the various degrees of assault and battery within the state law? I read extensively on this, and there's
It makes it a specific offense against the town of Hempstead enforcement official.
yeah, I get that, but there is, what would be the difference if, according to New York State law, what you describe in your law, it's the same thing, and in some cases, I think the state law might even be harsher in the punishment. I understand how the history of this, and no need to go through it, I think we all do, but the idea behind it was that they wanted to make the punishment stronger, that they wanted to make this, the liquid thing, throwing water on a police officer, a felony, and not a misdemeanor. It's already a misdemeanor, and I looked at this, if someone just blocks me from going into a public building, that could be considered, assault. And, I read all this other stuff, we don't need to go through it because I don't have enough time for it. But, it seems like you're just being redundant here. You're not adding anything to state law. You're not adding anything to anything. And I think that if you don't have police powers in the town for that purpose anyway, the public safety officers are only here to prevent it. They can't initiate an arrest or something and come and take someone away unless
Right,
they do something violent. So I'm not sure what the purpose of this is, because state law seems to take care of all this and more. And I think it just confuses the issue if you bring it to court. I think they would just throw this law out and just go by state law and follow those guidelines.
Mr. Procacci, my understanding is the New York State penal law classifies specific people as protected from certain attacks: police officers, peace officers, MTA transit workers. What the town board is proposing to do is create its own special class of protected people in our enforcement officials.
Yeah, I just think it's just redundant, and like I said, the punishments, if someone threw water on me or any other resident, that would be considered assault. If someone spit on you, whether you're a town official or not, it would still be considered assault. So I just think that it's a bit redundant. I just want to go, bring up one point, because
What's the harm, Felix?
this is,
What's the harm? By providing a little extra protection.
I think making a convoluted set of laws, there's always a problem when you confuse the issue. I always spoke about, like, with the breastfeeding law, I thought that was redundant, but I just want to bring up this one point.
And Felix, if I could just point out.
Let me just finish. Let me just finish my thought, then you have all the time in the world.
I'm
In
good.
2016, Dorothy Gooseby told the public safety officers to throw me out of the building because I was talking about windows in restaurants. Right away, Joe Rod jumped up and told them not to touch me. At that time, I didn't know the law, but it turns out if they had touched me, I would have been able to consider that assault. And the thing is, like I said, this was already existing law, and all you're doing is just adding redundancy and confusion to it because it's already a crime under New York State law. Now you can say whatever you want. Okay? That's it. Bye.
Thank you, Mr. Prakashi.
I would like for him, when he makes statements, to make sure they're correct. I did not ask him to do them, I just pointed my hand, because then he knew, because he was very obnoxious and very disrespectful. I just received a letter, I'm sure you received a copy of it too, from some people in the audience who are speaking very bad about some of the things, the way he treats us, and the way he does not respect anyone, not even himself.
Okay, I do not have any other slips on this public hearing. Is there anybody else who'd like to be heard? Hearing none, may I have a motion?
Supervisor, I'm sorry, it's yours, I'm sorry.
No problem. Supervisor, I move the public hearing be closed and the local law adopted.
Second.
Madam Clerk?
Supervisor Gillen?
Aye.
Councilman Blakeman?
Aye.
Councilman Diaz-Bazito?
Aye.
Councilman Dunn?
Aye.
Senior Councilwoman Gooseby? Councilwoman King Sweeney?
Aye.
Councilman Muscarella?
Madam Clerk, please call the next public hearing.
To review the recommendation of the Town of Hempstead Landmarks Preservation Commission that the Franklin Square Movie Theater, 989 Hempstead Turnpike, Franklin Square, New York.
Supervisor, if I might, we received a letter last Friday from the property owner questioning the method of service, and it's a jurisdictional issue. Rather than go through the hearing and take a chance that they're right and we're wrong, I respectfully request that the matter be adjourned to October 2nd so we can send out the proper notices.
Mr. Rock, is it possible that they are wrong and that we could just pass it today and that we could pass a remedial resolution if in fact the procedures were not followed?
Well, I don't like to talk about litigation in a public forum, but let me just say that from a prospect, if there were to be litigation, that would not be a good idea.
Need the board members to make that motion?
Yes.
I'm going to defer to the council from the area.
Well, I got to tell you, I'm very, very unhappy that this wasn't calendared properly. The people in Franklin Square have been very patient and waiting for us to take action with respect to the recommendations made by the Historical Committee, who unanimously voted to create a historical site of the Franklin Square Movie Theater. And I just feel that we should pass it, and if there's a procedural issue, we can always take remedial action. Are you saying that that would jeopardize our position?
It's a jurisdictional issue, it's not procedural. It will obviate anything that goes on here today.
So, Mr.
It's
Rock,
much better to wait the 1 month and do it right. Make sure we do it 100% right.
All right, well, I'm not going to move to adjourn it. If it doesn't have a motion to be passed, it's held anyway, so.
is there anyone who'd like to be heard on this public hearing?
Can Councilman Baldwin, the community was also advised that there would be
No, I know, but
a request for
if
adjournment.
there's no motion, procedurally, if there's no motion to adopt this, it's the same thing as adjournment, correct?
Well, we need a motion to adjourn to October 2nd.
Because if it's jurisdictional, you can't adjourn it because you can't bring it back. Am I right or wrong?
We'll renotice for October 2nd.
Thank you.
Is there anyone who'd like to be heard on this public hearing? So are we having a motion on this hearing?
We can just move on.
Okay. Madam Clerk, please call the next public hearing.
Application of Carmack's Auto Superstores, Inc. for a special exception, public garage, to allow the introduction of Carmack's used car dealership with a proposed automotive service and repair area, automated car wash facility, and underground fuel storage tanks and fueling station. Premises located at 2000 Hempstead Turnpike in East Meadow.
Good morning, Supervisor Dillon, members of the board, William Vanesso, Shelley D. Savannah, 333 Earl Ovington Boulevard, Uniondale, New York, here on behalf of the applicant, Carmack's Auto Superstores, Inc. To my right is Mr. Jason Pruitt, a representative of Carmack's. We also have with us today Mr. Barry Nelson, a recognized real estate expert, as well as John Carter, who's also a recognized traffic expert. The clerk, or Michelle Hanson, the clerk's office, is providing the board members with a handout, a set of handout sheets to allow you to get a little bit of information about Carmack's as we proceed through the presentation. This property is known as 2000 Hempstead Turnpike in East Meadow. The board probably knows it better. It's the site of the former Home Depot on Hempstead Turnpike in East Meadow. The proposal for this project is to demolish a portion of that Home Depot building and replace it with a Carmack's operation. It will entail the construction of two smaller buildings and the operation of a used automotive sales and buying business. Carmack's is a national retailer. You may have seen their ads on television. They're very different from what you may think of when you think of used car lots with the flashing lights and the banners. This is a very professional, very attractive operation that is run, and I'll get into that in just a moment with Mr. Pruitt. Before I do that, though, just to discuss what relief we require from this board. Used car sales is a special use permit, but that's something that we have to go to the zoning board to obtain approval for. We're before this board today because of the automotive repair and servicing work that they provide as well that is open to the public. We're also here because they will be maintaining an automated car washing facility on the premises that will not be open to the public, but it will be used by the employees who are preparing vehicles for delivery or cars that have been serviced are being washed there. And then there's also a gas and storage tank that is on the premises, 12,000 gallon storage tank filled with regular grade gasoline only. And again, that too is only operated by the employees of Carmack's. It's not open to the public. It's there to fuel the vehicles that they are ultimately selling. So the special exception that we need from this board is for those uses. That being said, this site fronts on Hempstead Turnpike. It also has frontage on Front Street in East Meadow. Same access points will be used. We're not making any changes to those access points on either state road. All activity will be occurring within the Carmack's leasehold. It's approximately 4.6 acres of the overall 10-acre parcel of property that makes up the overall property. This is an operation which is very well run. It is one that has become very successful across the country. The first Carmack's will be opening in Smithtown on Long Island. This will be the second Carmack's. Now, if I may, I'd like to just have Mr. Pruitt provide some information about Carmack's, a little bit about its history and just how the operation works. Pruitt, would you tell us a little bit about Carmack's and the company itself?
Sure. So thank you for having us here today. My name is Jason Pruitt, I'm real estate manager with Carmack's. Carmack's is the nation's largest used vehicle retailer, as Bill mentioned. We currently have over 200 stores throughout the country, and we're growing rapidly. We're looking at a rate of about 10 to 15 stores a year. But we're not in the New York market yet, so we are new to this area. As Bill mentioned, this would be part of our first wave of Long Island stores here in Hempstead, with the other being in Smithtown. Carmack's is a Fortune 500 company, and we're also on Fortune 100 Best Companies to Work For list. What really sets Carmack's apart from other vehicle dealers, though, is our customer experience. So we're known for offering a very transparent and open sales process. When you go to a Carmack's, the price you see in a car is the price you pay. There's no haggling, no negotiation. So it's very much like a traditional retail experience, more so than what you often expect in a car buying experience. All of our cars have been very thoroughly reconditioned and go through a roughly 12-hour reconditioning process. So any car that you buy from Carmack's has been very thoroughly examined, and you're less likely of getting under money. We also offer a great selection of vehicles. You can go on our website at any time and look at over 50,000 cars at any of our Carmack's stores throughout the country. And if any of those cars brought to your local Carmack's store for a no obligation test drive, if you'd like the car to buy it, great. If not, that's fine too, no obligation to buy it. We also buy cars from our customers and offer free, no obligation appraisals of any vehicle, and we'll buy any vehicle a customer brings us. So unlike other dealers, we don't do trade-ins. If you buy a car from Carmack's and you sell it to your car, those are separate transactions, so those are not handled as trade-ins as of other dealers. That's the beauty of Carmack's.
Now, tell us, you also have a service and maintenance facility. Tell us a little bit about that.
Sure. So this particular Carmack's location will have a service operation. It will be a retail service operation. It will be light vehicle service and maintenance. When you think of oil changes, tire rotations, that kind of thing, that's what will be taking place here. We won't be doing any sort of heavy engine work or body work or painting at this location. Also, any sort of reconditioning work will be done off-site at our Smithtown location. So inventory prepared for sale, it will be reconditioned at Smithtown and brought to this particular location. Whenever a customer buys an extended service plan from us or has a vehicle still under warranty, they can still bring that car to Carmack's, but we then partner with other new car dealers in the area to send that work to those other dealers. So it actually results in additional service work for other dealers when Carmack's sends it.
What are your typical hours of operation?
So our retail sales operation is open generally from 9 to 9, Monday through Saturday, and we also offer Sunday hours as permitted locally. Those hours are not set in stone, though, those hours tend to vary by location, except those closer to the store. Our retail service operation is typically open from 7 to 6 from Monday through Friday.
Friday's not open on Saturday?
Correct.
And when somebody comes in with a vehicle that they either want to sell or they come in to see cars that they may want to buy, what's that experience? How does it work?
Sure. So when a customer comes to Carmack's, and build a site plan, the action information is presented to you. They will park in our customer employee lot. That's a public parking lot. It also is shared with the adjacent shopping center. They'll come and park in that parking lot. They'll enter our sales building, where they'll be greeted by a sales associate. That associate will then either take them on a tour of the vehicles in the sales lot, or the customer has the option of browsing the sales lot on their own. Then from there, if they decide to take a test drive of a vehicle, test drive any vehicle on site, and a sales associate will take that sales vehicle out to the vehicle sales lot, and then the customer will start the test drive. So the sales lot is basically a private inventory area where customers don't drive cars. The customer has arranged for a vehicle to be transported from another Carmack's to this location for a test drive. They can set an appointment, go into the sales building, then from there the vehicle will be waiting for them in the presentation lanes that are located immediately south of the sales building. And then from there they can take it for a test drive. You'll also notice there's a vehicle staging area on the site plan That is another private secured area for vehicles that are either waiting for service or have been serviced, or vehicles that can get out on the sales line.
Now, in terms of deliveries of vehicles, they will be brought by car carrier?
They will. So vehicles will be brought in by car carriers. We have a designated loading and unloading zone on site. So unlike other dealers, we do provide for that space on site. So there's never a need for our carriers to load and unload in adjacent right-of-ways or on our premises.
So you would accept the condition if the board were to approve this in the declaration of restrictive covenants, you would accept the condition that there would be no offloading or loading of car carriers either on Front Street or Hempstead?
Correct. We plan for that at all our locations.
Now, do you also control the times that those trucks come and make their deliveries?
We do. So we only accept deliveries during our operating hours. So just because, of course, we don't want vehicles loaded and unloaded in a public area, they need to be taken to some other areas. So we only accept vehicles during those hours from the areas.
Okay. Yeah. I think you indicated that this operation would generate approximately 55 to 65 total jobs, and then 20 to 30 employees present at any given time on that.
That's correct, and I'll just add that Carmack is the Fortune 100 best companies to work for because of the great work environment and ways we pay our employees. So we have been cited as providing quality jobs to communities.
What community activities does Carmack engage in?
Well, we operate the Carmack Foundation, which is a nonprofit which makes grants to other local nonprofits as chosen by the local store employees. We also encourage all of our employees to take part in public service, and we allow them paid time off to do that. We actually have a 100% participation rate for stores, not for employees, but for stores. So basically all of our stores have public service programs that employees are encouraged to participate in.
I understand you actively recruit veterans, military veterans for employment?
We do. So Carmack recognizes the important role that our military plays in the transition those people often face when they leave the military. We actively recruit ex-military for employment. Roughly 10% of our hirees are ex-military.
I have no further questions from the board has any questions. Otherwise, I'll call our next witness.
I have some questions. Do you sell electric cars? Excuse me. Sorry. Takes me a little longer to spit out what I want to spit out. 20 to 30 employees at any one specific time. So I'll be sitting there. And so that's going to be good for the economy around it. They're going to have to eat lunch, they're going to have to get their cars. They're not going to gas up in your place, the employees, right? That's for the people that purchase in the cars themselves.
Not only that, Councilman.
Speak into the mic, please.
Sorry, not only that, Councilman Dunn, you're right, the employees will be using services and buying goods in the area, but Jason also informed me that in terms of their service and repair, if there's work that their facility cannot do or does not do, they actually farm out to other local automotive repair and auto body repair facilities in the area, so it will also generate business for those entities.
Okay, so that's like body work and painting and all of that, you'll be sharing with the community, whoever, the chamber, whomever, whatever, just the local merchants will get some kind of business from your business.
So we actually partner with new vehicle dealers in the area. So if a customer buys a Toyota from Carmack and we bring that Toyota back and it needs engine work or body work, the work that we don't do, then we partner with that local Toyota dealer to have that work done.
Okay, the school districts and little leagues and all that, you're neighborhood friendly. You contribute to them. If they come and ask, generally you have a good neighbor policy, correct? You said you give grants, that's corporate, gives grants to certain things, so that's considered scouts and little leagues and all that too, or not?
It does. So we basically allow our local stores to determine how they want local grant money to be distributed, and local nonprofits can actually work with the store. You know, we support local girls clubs and various nonprofits, but it's all at the discretion of the local store in terms of who they partner with.
I read that there was no objection from the Nassau Planning Commission and the County Board Commission.
Yes, in the 239M referral that was sent to the Nassau County Planning Commission, they came back with a local determination, which is as close as a approval or support as they get. So they have no objection.
Okay, I've gone to a number of tournaments throughout the country, athletic tournaments, and in some of the hotels, they're right next to Carmack's, and I got to tell you, they're very professional looking. I think the community would like to have a decent business in that empty, vacant store, so I'm welcoming it. Providing that the community has an input, there's been a community meeting where people can give their, I've not heard of it, but can you tell me about that?
Some time ago, when Carmack first started looking at this site, and even before we filed our application to the town board, we held a community meeting. We contacted SEMCO, the community organization. We also invited everyone who received a notice of this hearing today to the East Meadow Fire Department, and we had a lengthy discussion, explained exactly, had Jason there, had another person from Carmack's there, did just what we did here today, explained the operations, explained how the site would be used, and we got very good feedback.
Okay, the diesel trucks that are delivering these vehicles, they're not going to be there early in the morning with the fumes going through the community.
Now, I understand that that was a problem with Home Depot. We talked to Jason specifically about that, and because they only allow deliveries during their business hours, which would be 9 to 9, there won't be vehicles coming in at 6 in the morning, or at 3 in the morning, or whatever the case may be, idling and waiting to unload.
Okay, a couple of other things in there. Laban might have a couple of questions, but you know, the good neighbor thing, you know, this is a very heavy veteran area, and we're going to be employing men and women coming out of the military and veterans that are looking for employment. Did I understand that correctly?
That's right.
What about a veteran's discount for, is that included in your corporate thing? I know that Burger King and Dunkin' Donuts gives a better discount. I don't know if you guys give a discount too. That has nothing to do with whether you're going to get it or not. I'm a retired Marine, that's why I'm not going to buy a used car, believe me. Anyway, go ahead.
Sure, so we consider ourselves a retailer like, you know, like a Target, you know, the price you see in the car is the price you pay, so we actually don't do discounts for veterans or any group. So that is truly the no-haggle price you see on our cars.
Excellent. So you met with the community, you met with the planning board, and there's been no, the only thing that ever occurred was one person who said they wanted something else there. And you know what? It didn't happen. And I was wondering why we didn't have a Carmack's on Long Island. And now we're going to have two of them. Because it was, I slept right next to your parking lot, right next to the building. And I said, this is great. It's not like a used car lot. Like you usually think there's a used car lot. It's not going to be a nice thing for the neighborhood. And I thought that was, if we're going to get any kind of used car lot, this is kind of what we want in our community. So I'm sure other people have seen the same, and that's probably why you've got the, now the pictures you show are mostly the rooms that are there. It has this, but I appreciate you're doing the display because you really do come prepared. The questions you asked are out of the line that you asked them. So I've had my questions answered, and I'd like to now give it to Mr. Blakeney.
Yes, I just had a couple of questions. In the spirit of former Councilman Gary Hughes, who was our resident arborist, I looked at your site plan, and it is going to be an improvement, but I did think that the trees along Hempstead Turnpike were a little light. Maybe you could supplement that a little more, a little less concrete, a little more greenery. That's number one. And number two is with the test drives, I'm a little concerned because you're starting off in Councilman Dunn's district, you might end up in my district. I'm a little concerned about
the test drives, that they not be done in a residential area or away from schools. So that's something you might want to pass on to the local manager.
Council.
The last thing, go ahead.
I neglected to point that out. We had actually covered that subject with the neighbors back when we had a community meeting. They are prepared to agree to a covenant that they not do test drives on the residential streets, that they'll limit their test drives to the main commercial thoroughfares.
Great, thank you. I think that would be a big
That's my mistake for not mentioning.
And the last thing is, don't make the used car buying experience too good, because then used car dealers will have a better reputation than politicians, and we can't have that.
You did mention the shrubbery, the greenery around it, and I understand there's always been an agreement with the European American flag.
Yes, there'll be a flag.
Excellent.
Right.
Mr. Morello had a question on the other side. I'm sorry. My question is, are you selling electric cars?
So we sell passenger vehicles that are late model, low mileage, and we do sell electric cars as well.
Are you planning any charging stations on the premises?
No, we don't have charging stations at our stores.
Okay.
If there are no further questions from Mr. Pruitt, I'll call on Mr. Nelson.
Good morning. It's Barry Nelson, 220 Pettit Avenue, Baldwin, New York, 11710. Quickly, I'd like to hand in some photographs that include the subject property and uses and pattern of development surrounding the subject property. I also have some aerial views, and attached to that would include the Nassau County Department of Assessment tax map and the zoning map for the town of Hempstead, maps number 37 and 38. The application before the board is for a special use, as the councilor went over it, and it's included in the verified petition, and it would be for the use of the repair facility, the automated car wash, the gas, and the gas storage on the site. If you look at my photographs, you'll see that this property is part of a development that will encompass Hempstead Turnpike to the north, Front Street to the south, and East Meadow Avenue to the west. It's a triangular block that includes various uses. It's all within the business district. In fact, that entire block contains over 35 acres. And it does have uses that would be special use type permits. That includes a car wash, which is off the premises to the east, Miami Car Wash. It also has at the triangle of Front Street and Hempstead Turnpike a Arby's drive-through. To the west, in fact, the northeast corner of East Meadow Avenue and Front Street, which was former Half-Mark Shopping Center, now is Stu Leonard's, has undergone a substantial upgrading, renovations, new storefronts, new parking fields, and signage. That now encompassing the block itself with the subject property under a substantial renovation, the elimination of which could be considered a more onerous use as a former site of Home Depot. It will maintain some retail as far as motels and a smaller addition to the eastern motels, but they're removing what used to be an old building built in the late 50s, early 60s, approximately 80,000+ square feet that will be removed. The west to the west and southeast corner of Hempstead Turnpike and East Meadow Avenue, it includes a 5-story office building, retail, it includes 2 nightclubs. That encompasses the entire block. Hempstead Turnpike is the main arterial road. If you'll look at my photographs, the last several sections of the photographs will depict similar uses that you'll find on Hempstead Turnpike. And you can just begin just to the west of the subject property and continue east up to approximately Wanto Parkway, maybe further east. There are additional car dealerships, new and used, auto sales, display, auto repairs, including Ford on the north side, Chrysler, Lincoln, Chrysler, Jeep on the south side, near Newbridge Road, Kia, and they are all within the business zone on Hempstead Turnpike. They are adjacent and near residential communities. They are amongst commercial uses, retail, professional services. In this immediate vicinity of the subject property, as I mentioned, you'll find auto repairs, gas stations, and car washes. You'll see drive-throughs, office buildings, etc. The redevelopment of this site for a auto repair facility for Carmack is less than 4,500 square feet. The car wash, which maintains a setback of almost over 181 feet from Front Street, and so to the nearest nearest facility of commercial on the block is over, in the subject block is over 160 feet. It's approximately a 17 by 52 building for the car wash. The repair facility is approximately 65 by 65, like I said, less than 4,500 square feet, and it's in the center of the block. The criteria for granting the special exception would be under the Town Law 267D2. I reviewed that. I can read each one, but to keep it brief and to the point, it's online, it's available. I looked at the pattern of development, the nature of character of this area, the uses found on Hempstead Turnpike, and on Front Street. I recognize, and I'm sure the board recognizes, to the south side of Front Street, the town includes residential streets nearby of single-family dwellings. The proposed development mitigates any impact to the residential. You'll see the development is towards the center of the property close to the Hempstead Turnpike. There's provided landscaping and fencing along the southerly property line.
So, Mr. Nelson, did you make a thorough investigation of the whole neighborhood and uses? And is this use consistent with the uses that currently exist in that area?
Yes, sir.
And would there be any adverse effect on the property values in that area if we approve this application?
No, sir, not at all. Thank you.
And now very briefly, I just called John Harder of Atlantic Traffic just to speak to the site circulation and trip generation for this.
Go ahead, John Harder, H-A-R-T-E-R, Principal of Atlantic Traffic and Design Engineers, located at 2929 Expressway Drive, north of Hong New York. I've been there for 25 years and I'm a licensed engineer as well.
Very briefly, if you would, I know you performed an analysis of this proposed operation, the Carmack's project, and you've drawn some conclusions with regard to the safety of site circulation, with regard to trip generation, with regard to overall potential impacts on parking traffic.
Right, a good story to tell from a traffic perspective. The site today has about 135,000 square feet of retail, and roughly 60% of that to be removed, 84,000 square feet, and the remaining, or the proposed used car dealer or Carmack's facility will be a very low generator of traffic. We've done ITE trip generation estimates for that retail, 84,000 square feet that's being removed, and the car dealership. And car dealership generates on the order of 25 to 45 trips in a peak hour, two-way trips in and out, whereas the retail was roughly 150 to 300 plus trips. So if that were reoccupied as retail, it would be a significant generator compared to what our proposal is. The site access is being maintained. We've received preliminary comments from DOT, so assuming locally we're approved, we would address those and move forward with the little issue. The site circulation, we will maintain the access as noted. That will include a 30-foot, very generous two-way aisle around the Carmack's area that will serve almost as a loop road that will serve all vehicles, including car carrier that's proposed. And just in perspective, a 24-foot aisle is typical, so it's an oversized circulation plan. The parking is, we're proposing 12 overall spaces, and we exceed the requirement of 408. So again, I think all the traffic components here are very well addressed.
That's what the representation, and just like the applicant respond to public comment.
And there's cars going to be parked outside that are going to be up for sale, or they're going to be inside.
The way, if you take a look at the site plan in the handout, there is a gated and enclosed area where the vehicle display takes place, and then exterior of that, there is parking for customers. The people do not park in and amongst the cars that are out for display.
And that'll be handicap accessible.
Absolutely.
You have to comply with the ADA rules anyway. All right, and he said that there won't be any traffic, there won't be a ton of traffic. The Home Depot was there was a ton of traffic, but this isn't a Home Depot kind of place, so traffic's not going to be,
Correct.
It's, good.
Thank you, Mr. Benson.
Thank you.
I have a slip from Vanessa Massell.
She was the first, she's with Carmack.
Teresa Baden. Good morning, Ms. Baden. If you could just state your name and address for the record.
Teresa, Teresa, Bainton, Bainton.
Thank you.
108 7th Street, East Meadow. Thank you for this opportunity just to raise a concern. Presently, we have test wells on our block because of dry cleaners contamination, which was located on Front Street between Hempstead Turnpike and Front Street. I think probably adjacent to this particular business. And the concern that I have is in reference to the storage tanks for the gasoline and any oil that's going to be removed and oil changes and things of that sort.
Mr. Vanessa, would you like to speak to that?
Sure. In terms of the storage tank, this is a very small tank as compared to...
If you could just speak into the mic, thank you.
It's a very small tank as compared to what a gas and service station would have on site. This is a 12,000 gallon tank. Gas stations can have upwards of 50 and 60,000 gallon tanks, but be that as it may, it still is going to be installed and having to meet all of the requirements that apply to underground storage tanks. It's a double-walled, state-of-the-art facility. It will have monitors and sensors so that if one wall breaches, there's a notice, there's an electronic notice that goes to the thing. They're much safer than even the generation 20 years ago. Additionally, any oils or byproducts resulting from lubrications, car oil changes and the like, those are all removed by licensed professionals from the premises. Nothing goes into the ground. They have strict requirements for that too that they adhere to.
Ms. Bainton, did that answer your question?
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Teresa. That was good questions. Thank you, Teresa.
I have Andrew Bainton also. Okay, thank you. I do not have any other slips on this application. Is there anyone else who'd like to be heard? You conclude.
That sums up our presentation. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
We have Ms. Craig, she's coming to say a few words.
Good morning, Mary Ellen Craig from 6 Locust Avenue, Uniondale. My question is about the car wash. Is this for the dealership or for the general public?
Strictly for the dealership.
Okay, then I have no objection because I feel there are plenty of car washes and we have concerns about water usage. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Craig. Is there anybody else who'd like to be heard on this application? Hearing none, may I have a motion?
I'd like to make a motion that being there was no objection from the planning committee and that Semco and the fire department are on board and the traffic's going to be less than Home Depot was, that I'd like to close the hearing and move the item.
Second.
Madam Clerk?
Supervisor Gillen.
Aye.
Councilman Blakeman.
Aye.
Councilman Diaz-Fatito.
Aye.
Councilman Dunn.
Aye.
Senior Councilwoman Guzzi.
I'm very happy to see a profitable business come into that area. So I move, I vote yes.
Councilwoman King Sweeney.
Aye.
Councilman Mostrella.
Aye.
All right, Madam Clerk, please call our next public hearing.
Application of SNS Realty, Inc. for a modification of declaration of restrictive covenants affecting real property located on the northeast corner of Atlantic Avenue and Davidson Avenue in Oceanside.
Okay, good morning.
Good morning. Good morning, Supervisor Gillen, members of the board. My name is Anthony Guardino. I'm a partner with the law firm of Farrell Fritz in Hempstead, New York. I represent the applicant, SNS Atlantic Realty, in connection with this application, which is for a modification of a restrictive covenant that was imposed by a predecessor board back in 2010, so that it can now construct a fully compliant, from a zoning point of view, 23-unit luxury rental development on an assemblage of 5 properties that it owns in Oceanside at 404 and 418 Atlantic Avenue. I also have with me Michael Bonacasa, a registered architect, and the principals of SNS Atlantic Realty are also here if you have any questions. Essentially, as I mentioned, this is a modification of a covenant restriction. It sounds like a change of zone. The change of zone was already done, so this is not a change of zone application. And the board may recall back in July of this year, the board voted to reinstate the prior change of zone. So the change of zone now is still effective. However, we do need, my clients need a modification of the covenant because originally, when they made the application in 2010, and also when they came back in 2011, it was for an 18-unit condominium complex with a recreational clubhouse, etc. Now they are proposing to have the units be rental apartments. There will be 23 rental apartments. As I mentioned, it fully complies with zoning. It complies with density, which is allowed on this site, which is a little over an acre in size. It has sufficient parking. It meets all of the setbacks. It meets the height. It needs nothing other than the relief from this board at this point. There was a petition that was filed. There was a proposed draft, I guess, of a modified covenants and restrictions, which had to be modified a little bit more because the original application changed in terms of parking spaces, et cetera. It kind of evolved. We did have many meetings with the building department. There were a number of comments. The comments had to be addressed. What you have before you in terms of a site plan, which is in your packet, I believe at Exhibit 5, is the product of the back and forth with the building department. And we believe it resulted in a far improved application from what was originally submitted. My client, without getting into any more detail, because it is kind of a simple application from a zoning point of view, my client did start this process in 2010, as I mentioned. They applied for the 18 condominium units. It was approved for the change of zone. They came back in 2011, asked to allow for some of the units to be rented. The board at the time allowed them to be rented, but only for a period of 3 years, so that doesn't work for today. And then there was a complete collapse of the condominium financing market in 2011. Then, of course, Sandy hit, and my clients actually own a bunch of properties in the area, so they were forced to divert their attention and their economic resources to correct the damages or remedy the damages on the other properties they had. So they kind of shelved this for a little while, so I just wanted to give an explanation as to why we're coming back now. And it's been, well, we started last year, so it was probably a 7-year delay. But that's the reason. And at this point, I don't really have much more to add. I did give you the booklet. There were photos of the subject property. You can see what's on it. It was split zone, so there's some commercial use of the property and there's some residential use of the property, because each parcel, 404, was, I believe, zoned business X, and 418 was zoned residential. So you see a mix of uses on the property today. All of the buildings will come down. There are a number of buildings on the property. Everything will come down in order to build this new development. So I don't really have much more. I'm happy to answer any questions that the board may have.
I just have actually one question. All the parking for the units is on site, correct? There's no street parking.
And it complies. It meets
and it's decent distance from the train station, so.
Yes, Councilman. Actually, I put an exhibit. I think it's Exhibit 10, which I took in Google Maps, and basically shows we're close to 2 train stations. It's a very unique piece of property. You see on the first page of Exhibit 10, it shows you that it's 0.3 miles away from the East Roxbury train station, which it says here is a 7-minute walk. And if you flip the page, you have the Oceanside train station, which is 0.7 miles, a little further away, but still only a 13-minute walk. So you have the proximity to mass transit is tremendous. So
my biggest concern is the parking.
No, believe me. Why?
Any other member of the board? Any other questions? Thank you, Mr. Bordino.
Thank you very much.
I have a slip from Kenneth Coleman.
I don't know. You just ask general questions, see what comes out. You don't accuse anything.
Good morning.
Good morning. If you would just state your name and address for the record, please, sir.
Kenneth Coleman, I live at 2881 Davidson Street, Oceanside, New York, 11572.
Thank you.
I had a couple of questions about, number one, is it going to be senior living? Is it going to be low-income living? Is it going to be rental units?
Mr. Bordino, would you come back and answer some of these questions?
Of course. So it will be market rate, it will not be age restricted. It will actually be luxury housing is what we're proposing on the higher end.
And the next question I had was, where would they do the curb cuts for the traffic? I know across the street there's Dee's Nursery, there's Contractor Express, and there's a lot of traffic. In fact, there's 18-wheelers that park on Atlantic Avenue right now every day. And obviously they can't fit in a 12-foot lane, so they stick into the street. That's another concern for the day, but I'm just concerned about how the car is going to pull out safely. I was hoping that become a post office, but that didn't happen.
I'll show you the plan here. Exhibit 5 of our booklet shows that there is a single curb cut that serves the site, and it's in the same location as the curb cut or driveway that serves 418 Atlantic. So it's going to be Right now, there are 2 curb cuts on the site, one for 404, one for 418, so we're eliminating the curb cut, so that's a good thing, so there'll be less conflict or interaction, I should say, with the vehicles that are traveling on Atlantic Avenue.
So is this going straight across to Silver Lane?
Well, it doesn't go through, no, it doesn't, there's no opening, there's just a single access.
And the other thing is, I spoke to my neighbors, and today being the first day back at school was kind of a hard day to meet. And the other thing was that the location was given in northeast corner. The northeast corner is a church, so everybody was, and this doesn't have nothing to do with the church that's there. And the other thing was the street was the wrong street. So a lot of my neighbors who got this thought it was either something for the church or were misrepresented by how it was proposed to us and how it was delivered. And even though it did come registered mail, well, my next door neighbor, Donald Deckard, well, his nanny signed for it. So he got it, but just assumed it was something for the church because it said northeast corner, which is the church. And the street is wrong. It's Davison Avenue, and it's clearly Davison Street. So there would have been more people here today.
Well, we didn't generate the legal notice, but you are here, and your neighbor, as you mentioned, didn't receive it. The fact that their nanny signed for it, that's up to them. There's
Right,
nothing
but
we
he
can
thought
do.
it was something for the church, which is the northeast corner.
Well, I believe it said that it was northeast of the intersection of Davison Avenue
Which
and
is the
Atlantic.
church.
Well, but this is still northeast. It is still the northeast.
But I think it was specifically address wasn't given.
Sir, if you wouldn't happen to have a copy of the,
I don't
The
know.
letter.
It's my neighbor Joe Noon who maybe has one.
Could you give it to Ms. Hanson so she can bring it up for us?
The addresses are in there.
You hand it over to Ms. Hanson.
Do you want to see this?
Yeah, if you can hand it to Ms. Hanson, she'll bring it up.
And I live on Davison Street.
and obviously I don't know the dimensions off the top of my head, but we'll look at it after the hearing's over, and we'll figure out where we're at.
Can I just make a comment here? I'm looking at the official legal notice that was sent. And what it says here, that it's a parcel that's 1.187 acres, which is located 145.19 feet from the northeast corner, right? The intersection. That's the way you describe things. You give the distance from the corner. We have to work from the corner because that's the landmark or the milestone, or the specific location.
Corner of what street?
It says Davidson Avenue.
Well, it's not Davison Avenue.
It's Davidson Street. I can tell you.
And my wife and I don't have tape measures. I'm a police officer. I know a little bit more about feet, but I just saw this the other day. My wife signed for it. She's the one that received it, and she didn't know what 150 feet was. She just assumed it was the church, because that is the northeast corner of Davison Street.
So does it say the wrong street? It says...
It says irregular shaped 1.187 acres of land located 145.19 feet from the northeast corner of Davidson Avenue and Atlantic Avenue, situate, lying, and being in the hamlet of Oceanside, town of Hempstead, Nassau County, and then it was the section block lots of the parcels.
So it is a Davidson Avenue, is that right? It's Davidson Street?
Davidson Street, yes, no.
I have to just point out that the official documents that I have from the town Avenue. So, I mean, I've never seen an application, tripped up by the fact of whether something is a road or a street or an avenue. I mean, you live on the street. You did get the notice. The notice comes to people within a certain radius. There's no Davison Avenue somewhere else that's within the radius.
Yes, there is. Yes, there is.
Yeah, up within 200 feet.
Well, again, my wife is not clear about 200 feet, but there is a Davison Avenue about two blocks away.
Yeah, we do.
So I think the best bet here is we'll go through the proceedings. I will have somebody from my office get in touch with you, and we'll figure this all out.
And have they done anything with as far as the traffic and, I love the nursery, I love, Contractor Express I use, everybody uses Dee's Nursery, and we're very happy with their service to the community, and I'm just worried about the traffic on Atlantic Avenue is a second issue I have.
Understood.
On that issue, again, this is a reinstatement of a covenant. It's not, I'm not asking for any relief. This is a use that was, or a zoning designation that was decided 10 years ago. It was recently restated. I'm just asking to modify the covenants. Right? So this is more housekeeping than anything from my perspective, but I'm happy to address your concerns.
Yeah, I think what would work out best, sir, if you don't mind, we could have Kathy from my office kind of link you guys together and open up a line of communication. This way, if you or your neighbors have any specific questions, we can get them answered for you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Joe Neal?
Sir, I'm going to give you back your...
I appreciate it.
Yeah.
My name is Joe. First of all, good morning, if it's still morning. My name is Joe Newman. I live at 2887 Davidson Street, Oceanside, right next to Kenny. My family's been in Oceanside since Oceanside was called Christian Hook, and Davidson Avenue is clearly, 2 to 3 blocks away where Oceanside Library is. So I understand where they got Davidson Avenue was. Davidson Street was Davidson Avenue back when Oceanside was Christian Hook, because it's on all my old paperwork from my over 100-year-old house. So that being said, I have first of all, I'd like to know what the modification is. One thing I did hear the gentleman say is that it was going to be switched from condos, which people own, to rentals, and I have a concern about that. I also I just want to get through my time with what I have to say. This is the first time I'm speaking at a public hearing like this. It was clearly a wrong address on the sheets given to us. I worked during the day and everything. It was very hard to get my certified letter. I only got to my house around a week and a half to 2 weeks ago. I think I'm fair in saying that. And I only got my letter in the middle of last week, right before Labor Day weekend. What exactly is being done to this property is my main question. Whose property is it? Is the one right behind Davidson Street, or is the one over by the old American Legion Hall? Because I know there was supposed to be 70 units over in that corner, but I believe it's on the property directly behind.
Mr. Noonan, it's definitely not the American Legion.
Okay, so it's directly behind the...
It's not the Grossman property.
So it's the gentleman Sammy owns the property?
I don't know who he...
Is that who owns it? I believe Sammy's here in the back. So that's right behind our house. Now, it was always commercial for the first 100 feet. My main concern is that behind 100 feet, it clearly stays residential. And I believe that it's always been 100 feet, Class B commercial, and then behind that, it was 100% residential property. The difference between this legal letter and Carmack, who was on the docket before this, was they clearly stated their address on Hempstead Turnpike, right next door to a girlfriend's house and all that. And I realized that they're welcoming that property coming into that area. But this did not have a clear address on this. And it's been an ongoing fight just with the properties behind us. Sammy's been a very good owner behind us. Him and I have had contact with each other in a very professional manner. I don't have any problems to say about Sammy, but I do if it's going to be commercial property behind my house. Main thing is what this modification exactly is and where these condos are going to be built. Excuse me, you said apartments. That's a problem with the neighborhood, I know that. There'd probably be around 20 people in here from the neighborhood if they knew that behind us is going to be apartments. I can tell you that much right now.
Okay,
that's all I have to say. Thank you very much for listening to me.
Thank you, Mr. Newman. If you want to stay for a minute, Mr. Baldwin can answer some of your questions.
Just a couple of things. And before I get into your substantive comment, I think what you had said about Davidson Avenue, Davidson Street being Davidson Avenue prior. I think that's probably the genesis of why some of the town records say Davidson Avenue. I can only go by what's in the official record. So when the notices are prepared and when I mail them and we do the radius, we work off of what the town has. If that's not accurate, I can't do that. So the letter describes has a legal description of the property because that's what's required by the town code. With respect to the timing of the letter, you have to understand that there's a window of time. I can't send them too early because then I violate the law. I can't send them too late because I violate the law. I understand that it may not have worked for you. You would have liked it earlier. I can't do that legally. I'm bound by what the code says. So that's why the letter came when it came. And then with respect to your concern about the zoning, about it being only 100 feet of commercial. First of all, this is not commercial. This is CA Residence District, which is multifamily residential. But the zoning was done already. The zoning was done 10 years ago. So we're not here to talk about whether it's going to change the zoning. All we're here to discuss or to request is a modification of the covenants and restrictions to allow the number of units to go from 18 condominiums to 23 rental units in a development that complies with all of the requirements of the town's code.
There's presently a two-family house behind me, so I don't know where it went from. Maybe this room could tell me when it did change from residential to the different zone commercial property.
I think it was 2010 or 9.
2010.
And what modification are we looking for here?
They're just looking to go from 18 units to 23.
Originally, it was supposed to be condominiums, and there are going to be 18 condominiums, and now they're changing to make it 23 rental units instead of condominiums.
Right, the zoning from the single-family residential or two-family residential home, whichever is there, to the zoning that allows a building like this was passed in, I'm sorry, 2010.
Well, I would say that the neighbor would probably have a problem with it.
The zoning has already passed, though that happened years ago, so they have the right to build it, they're just changing it from...
Third level up on top of 2 stories, so now they're looking into my yard.
I'm not sure. Is it 3 stories?
2 stories.
So the entire units?
It fully complies with the zoning. I'm happy to share the plan with you. I know, but I'm happy to give you a copy of the plan. I will point out, and maybe this helps you, is that the building will be located on the east side of the property, and only the parking will be behind your property, not the building. So the building is further away from where you live.
So the cars running in my backyard is going to be asked to control the information.
The cars are the building, so
Mr. Gordino, maybe your client can just speak to some of the adjacent owners to try to work with them to get them to support and understand what the project is and accommodate some of their concerns.
Yeah, perhaps we could, increase fencing, increase shrubbery, whatever helps.
I'm just going to take a picture. Sure.
Thank you. And maybe, if Mr. Gordino, if you could give Mr. Green your contact information, you could give him some documents as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Newton.
Thank you. I do not have any other splits on this public hearing. Is there anyone else who'd like to be heard?
Me and Jay Meredith, Baldwin resident. I had a question with regard to the possibility of pilots with this project. Since you mentioned we're looking at luxury accommodations, what happens if they're not fully rented?
Well, the intention is that the market right now is very, very strong for rental units, particularly for rental units that are within walking distance of 2 train stations. We fully anticipate that these units will all be rented. Our client is, proceeding with this development with the thought that it will be very successful. And again, I'm the land use attorney. I think this is an excellent site for what they're proposing here.
Unfortunately, the market doesn't always accommodate the workforce on Long Island. We're at a very high unemployment rate. We have lack of affordable housing. We have lack of housing for workforce, lack of housing for senior citizens, and lack of housing for veterans. I'm always uncomfortable when I hear about additional luxury accommodations when residents are fleeing because they cannot afford to live here. So again, because of the increase in pilots in this region and the tax burden on the middle class, I would like to know what are the assurances that residents will not be seeing a pilot brought to this body with regard to this project.
Well, I can't give you an assurance that my client is not going to seek IDA benefits because it's entitled to do so. So where that ends up, I can't tell you, but they're not going to give up their right to request the right to be eligible for those benefits. I do want to point out, for just maybe this will answer some of your questions. The rents here, well, this is considered luxury housing. These are not, this is not waterfront housing. So the rents here, I'm just going to mention because they're in the public record, and they're estimated rents. But for the one bedroom unit, $1,950 is what is being estimated at this point. For a 2-bedroom unit on the second floor, $2,650, and for a 2-bedroom unit on the first floor, it would be slightly higher at $2,750. That's what we're targeting and estimating at this point. That could change, but these are not something. I know the town has seen some luxury units where rents are in the $3,000 ranges. That's not what we're proposing here. So it would be somewhat affordable to a greater number of people.
And who are you advertising these to?
I'm the land use attorney. I don't know who they're advertising them to. I'm thinking they're advertising them to the local community and to people who are empty nesters who might want to downsize, and young professionals who might want to get into the housing market.
My last comment has to do with the town itself. The last 2 presentations, residents had to sit back in this cold building and watch these blank screens yet again that we pay for. It is a disservice for residents not to be able to see the projects and all of the exhibits for us to bring healthy dialogue and discussion for the amount of money that we pay to live in this jurisdiction. It is appalling because it continues to happen. And again, I wanted to make a point with regard to the point going back of outreach and support services for our seniors and our veterans as it pertains to housing and our young residents. Because, again, that is a luxury that most of us cannot afford on the back end. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Mariday. I hope your voice gets better. Thank you, Ms. Gordon. Is there anybody else who would like to be heard on this public hearing? Hearing none, may I have a motion?
I move that the public hearing be closed and we reserve decision.
Madam Clerk?
Supervisor Gillen?
Aye.
Councilman Blakeman? Aye. Councilman Diaz-Pazito? Aye. Councilman Dunn?
Aye.
Senior Councilwoman Gooseby? Aye. Councilwoman King Sweeney?
Aye.
Councilman Muscarella?
Aye.
Madam Clerk, please call the next public hearing.
Resolution finding the draft generic environmental impact statement, DGEIS, for the proposed Baldwin mixed-use overlay district, BMX, to be complete and adequate for public review and comment in terms of both its scope and content, and calling a combined public hearing on the creation of a new chapter, what is this, 1032 of Baldwin Zone Ordinance of the Town of Hempstead entitled Baldwin Mixed Use Overlay District BMX, and the draft generic environmental impact statement DGEIS for the proposed BMX Baldwin.
Thank you. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Supervisor and Town Board. My name is Maura Falaz. I'm with BHB. I'm a Senior Project Manager located at 100 North Parkway, Hopkins, New York, 1174. I'm joined today by Eric Alexander from Vision Long Island, as well as Alyssa Kyle from Vision Long Island, and Daniel Winkleman from BHB. Today we're here to discuss the proposed BMX overlay district within the hamlet of Baldwin. It's along the Grand Avenue corridor. Our presentation will be pretty short. We want to give a brief overview of where we're at in the process, and then open it up to the public for any comments or questions they may have. We'll start off by giving an overview of the Baldwin revitalization project, as well as an update on the SECRA process, the draft zoning and design guidelines, the specific SECRA and generic environmental impact statement topics and conclusions, and then we will open it up to town board and public comments. So, a brief overview of the process. The Baldwin revitalization project has been pretty much ongoing for the last 5 or 6 years, and it started off in about 4 years ago with a Baldwin Downtown Commercial and Corridor Resiliency Study, which outlined implementable strategies to foster economic investment and provide housing options, as well as increase pedestrian amenities and enhance public spaces within downtown Baldwin. One of the core community-based recommendations from this study was a transit-oriented development overlay district that would allow for a compact and walkable mixed-use downtown centered around the Baldwin Long Island Railroad train station. Specifically, the study called for an overlay zoning framework to allow for a mix of uses and increased densities near the train station. Following the completion and adoption of the DCCR study by the town of Hempstead, they engaged BHB and Vision Long Island to draft the zoning as well as design guidelines and conduct the environmental review in accordance with New York State's SECRA process of those 2 documents. Throughout the process, we've held 2 large public engagement meetings, as well as we've included quite a bit of close coordination, monthly meetings with the Baldwin community and coordination with the development community, as well as the civics and the chamber. And we'll get into a little bit more detail about the community outreach we conducted a little later in our presentation. Next slide, please. So some of the project goals, as mentioned earlier, are really of the BMX overlay district is to facilitate private investment within this specific corridor. I'll show a little bit later what the boundaries of the corridor are, as well as the BMX district, but specifically the goals of the BMX overlay district would be to facilitate public investment, increase public benefits and economic development within downtown Baldwin. It would promote a transit-oriented development around the train station, as well as increase demand for housing alternatives, drive foot traffic, and increase the demand for retail uses, including sit-down restaurants. It would leverage the area's proximity to public transportation to strengthen economic and physical resiliency within the Baldwin community. I also want to note that as part of the process, there's been a concurrent study and effort led by Nassau County DPW for the Grand Avenue corridor that would work in cohesion with the BMX overlay district. And part of that is to implement transportation and infrastructure improvements to accommodate the future growth that is anticipated from the BMX overlay district. It would also enhance visual quality and pedestrian amenities in downtown through the implementation of design standards and streetscape improvements, which we will also discuss in a bit.
So the community engagement is really important in this. We had heard from the community for many years, downtown revitalization projects have been happening across the island, but Baldwin had somehow been left behind. There had been not by lack of a lot of efforts here with the town and with the community and with the many property owners and potential developers. There was a 15-year process to try to get some things off the ground. We started this process in August at a very hot meeting in the auditorium at the Baldwin High School, and I think most folks, Baldwin folks here, remember it, and I know Aaron and the supervisor and Esposito also were there, and Dr. Woosby, of course, senior councilwoman, so we know that we all were there. We had to turn lemons into lemonade through this process. We had to build up trust that something can happen. So we started, the real problem was the economics. Can we create a buildable code? So we first went through the process of interviewing, we call it developer speed dating, but we had meetings. We looked at the 25 transit-oriented developers on Long Island, focused on different categories, and got to as many of them as possible. I think we interviewed about 15 of them, got their inputs on, parking ratios, the impact of school kids, all these things. So we got information from the developers on the front end. We also got information from the community through the meetings, and we've had those prior studies with the quarter study, a prior study before that with the federal government through the county. So there's plenty of information that has been assembled in short order. We stuck to schedule, which folks are like, this is going to be another 2 years. It hasn't been another 2 years. We're just about a year from that hot meeting that we had. So we've got a lot of tremendous input. The Civic and Chamber have worked really great together. We've had great participation. And even to the point where, all the details, we'll hear about design guidelines and concerns about walkability, and, just making sure that small businesses and vacancies are filled. Those are bottom line issues: safety, security, maintenance. These are the types of things we hear. So we're excited that we've got a product here that's ready to go. And with that, I know, let's steal the thunder, but the state has been very interested in Baldwin, so I'm going to take that away from you.
$10 worth, $10 million worth.
$1 million, exactly. So congratulations to you for your efforts. But we're excited to be on the ground floor with the community. I know there's community folks here that are ready to say some words about this as well. So I'll stop here and continue on.
If I could just jump in, Eric and Marwa, I can't thank you enough. I mean, to the average person sitting here, this might not sound overly sexy, but what has gone into this over really the last 20 years is unbelievable. And the fact that this thing has been pulled off in a year, and we're making it sound kind of boring right now and routine, is unbelievable. And it is a tribute to you, to all the members of the board here, and also to the Baldwin community. I know that we have Baldwin civic leaders. You've got Karen Montalbano here. I think Eric Muller, I saw him walk in early up the Lorax is over there. And but with all of these people in the community, I think everyone is so well-meaning and so ready finally for something to happen. And so at the local town level, the county level, the state level, everyone has been fully committed to progress in Baldwin. So thank you for making this happen. I can taste it. I said I've been doing monthly town hall meetings until there's a shovel in the ground. So God, let's bring that shovel because it's getting onerous. No, I'm just kidding. But really, thank you for everything. This is great stuff.
Certainly, I would like to thank you as well. I'm not going to try to go through all the words that she said, but I think most of them made sense, and I agree with many of them since I've been here for quite some time and have been really wanting this to happen. So it looks like it's going to, and I thank you so much for all that you've done. And I thank the community for being so involved with it.
Great job.
It's been a pleasure working with the community and with the board and the supervisor's office and everybody just really on board working together to get this happen. It's definitely a breath of fresh air because you don't see that a lot in community. So very exciting. And part of the biggest point of this process wasn't drafting the zoning or even the design guidelines, but it's really doing the environmental review, which is where a lot of developers get stuck in the process, is getting through the environmental review process. So the town's investment in doing the BMX overlay district and doing the SECRA that goes along with that overlay district to help get rid of some of that red tape and some of those hurdles that developers run into and takes up time and money is going to be a huge bonus to them when they come in and propose under this overlay district. So with that being said, I'd like to discuss the secret timeline. So a little mundane, I know, and this is just something that we have to go through under New York State regulation, but a positive declaration was issued on April 16th, 2019. The DGIS, which is the Draft Generic Environmental Impact Statement, was completed and accepted as complete and adequate for public review by the town board on August 6th. And today we sit here to describe what is in that document. That document has been made available on the town's website, as well as hard copies at the Baldwin Library and the Town Hall for review and comment and question to be provided so that we can respond to all comments and questions in what will be called a final generic environmental impact statement. So today we will listen to comments after our presentation, and comments will be accepted until September 16th. The reason the last three bullets there kind of to be determined is because it'll all be based on how many comments we receive on the overlay district and design guidelines. So after September 16th, which is the close of the comment period, we'll be able to better assess subsequent dates. So with that being said, I'd like to get into discussing a little bit about the draft zoning of the BMX overlay district as well as the design guidelines. The proposed action that we evaluated under the State Environmental Quality Review Act is the amendment to the Town of Hempstead Building Zone Ordinance, which is creating a new overlay district entitled Baldwin Mixed Use Overlay District with accompanying BMX design guidelines. The BMX zoning map amendment will incorporate 189 parcels. Those individual tax parcels are within an approximately 87 acre study area along Grand Avenue. As seen, I know it might be a little hard to see up there, but as seen on this map, the district is bounded by the intersection of Florence Street and Milburn Avenue to the north and Merrick Road to the south. The Baldwin Long Island Railroad Station is centrally located within the overlay district at the intersection of Grand Avenue and Sunrise Highway. The overlay district boundary is shown as the Baldwin Mixed Use Overlay District map. There are 3 sub-districts designated within this study area that allow for overall density and varying allowances of overall density and building height. These sub-districts convey the specific character that the town wishes to achieve within the study area. So the pink sub-district is noted as the mixed-use transit-oriented development sub-district, which is the area closest to the Baldwin Long Island Railroad's train station and would allow for a maximum height of 75 feet. Along Merrick Road and the area, yes, thank you. That blue area down there along Merrick Road and the intersection of Grand is known as the Merrick Road Gateway, which includes the southern portion of the study area at the intersection of Grand and Merrick, and it's a maximum height of 60 feet would be allowed within this overlay district. And then the pink transition areas, the green transition areas are known as the commercial transition areas, and these are low-density sub-districts that are located north, south, and west of the BMX TOD sub-district with a maximum height of 45 feet. Next slide, please. This table summarizes the proposed lot and bulk controls within each sub-district. I'm not going to go through everything listed on the table, but to summarize, the major components are the maximum floor area ratio. There are 3 different floor area ratios based on each of the sub-districts, and they vary from 0.5 up to 1.5 near the train station. Further, the density, as noted above, varies as well. Within the TOD district, there is no maximum density per acre. Within the Merrick Road, it's 45 units per acre, and within the commercial transition, it would be 30 units per acre. The height, as I discussed earlier, vary from 75 feet in the TOD district down to 45 feet in the commercial transition areas. Next slide, please. As part of the overlay district, the town is also incorporating something called development bonuses. What these development bonuses are is an inclusion of provisions that would allow and encourage developers to provide public benefits and/or amenities in exchange for FAR bonuses and/or adjustments to off-street parking requirements as outlined in the BMX district. This would be provided at the discretion of the town board upon the determination that the public benefit or amenity provided would provide greater value to the community than the potential impacts of those development bonuses that would be granted. So eligible activities that would be included are noted above at the slides, which include the provision, renovation, or rehabilitation of a community benefit or amenity, brownfield or derelict property remediation and restoration, and contributions to community benefits that are non-site related infrastructure improvements. The zoning really outlines, as well as the DGIS, a great deal more than this, but the bottom line is providing for the developer or project to provide back to the community in order to get a little bit more. It really helps benefit the community as well as the developer and the overall project at the end of the day.
And just want to emphasize the point here that where this has been done on the island or off-site, that community input is key to this. This isn't just a giveaway. There has to be really solid public benefits that are agreed upon with the public. And we know there's a very active civic and chamber here, so we know you'll hear from folks and you hear from folks regularly. But this is something that is not automatic. This is something that it really has to be these tangible benefits that the community is looking for.
Alyssa will talk about the design guidelines.
Sure. In coordination with the overlay zoning, the design guidelines were created to help ensure that any development that happens here is done in a pedestrian-friendly and attractive manner that really enhances the quality of downtown Baldwin. Looking to create pedestrian amenities, architecture that facilitates a pedestrian-oriented environment. The guidelines would have, they touch upon everything from architecture to signage, exterior lighting, parking, landscaping, streetscaping, all these issues, and would provide a checklist essentially that developers would need to show that they are meeting all of these requirements, and then there would be a review board within the town to review the proposal and ensure that these requirements are being met and that this proposed development meets these higher levels of aesthetics and walkability.
So now we'll get into the details and conclusions of the State Environmental Quality Review Act. But quickly, just for the benefit of everybody, I'd like to go over what exactly that means. So the New York State Environmental Quality Review Act requires all state and local government agencies to consider environmental impacts during the discretionary decision making. The draft Generic Environmental Impact Statement, also known as the DGEIS, was prepared following the development of the proposed zoning for the project area. There have been conditions and criteria drafted for future development, and I'll get into what that really means later. But essentially, for any proposed project that comes in under the BMX overlay district, the town board will need to look at the conditions and criteria of the environmental analysis that was done for the overall BMX overlay district in order to make sure that they are consistent with the findings of the State Environmental Quality Review Act. So the DGIS evaluated the impacts associated with the adoption of the proposed zoning amendments as well as impacts resulting from a theoretical build-out scenario. So what is the theoretical build-out scenario? What we looked at was basically what is the approximate and greatest amount of development that could happen under the proposed BMX overlay district within a 10-year period, and evaluated the impacts of that. We came up with a theoretical build-out scenario of approximately 1,700,000 square feet of residential and commercial development on 9 potential parcels along the BMX overlay district boundary. Now, those parcels might not necessarily be the ones that will be developed, but those are the ones that have the maximum amount of potential development. So we looked at those and evaluated the impacts within the DGIS to come up with what the future proposed developments that come in will need to meet the requirements of this conditions and criteria that's drafted within the DGIS. Once we're done with the FGIS process, this will be streamlined and finalized to be included as part of the findings that the town board adopts, so that future projects that come in under the BMX overlay district will be evaluated for consistency with the conditions and thresholds or conditions and criteria that are listed under SECRA. So any action that contravenes from that conditions and criteria that we've provided to the town, we require a supplemental SECRA review. The idea is projects that come in under the BMX overlay district and want to avoid going through a new SECRA process should meet the conditions and criteria that are listed within the document there. And it's meant to fast track, as I mentioned earlier, the environmental review process for those applicants meeting the criteria and conditions. Next slide, please. So I'm not going to go into every single topic because then we'd all be here forever, but we do want to cover a few key topics in greater detail today. But the DGIS did evaluate several topics. And we looked at the physical alteration of land, as well as groundwater resources and flooding, aesthetic resources, historic and archaeological resources, transportation, energy, noise and light, and community character. And we looked at the existing conditions, as well as the possible impacts from the proposed BMX overlay district and any potential development within that overlay district. So with that being said, I will turn it over to Dan, who will go into greater detail about transportation.
Good afternoon, supervisors, members of the town board. As part of the SECRA process, we conducted a very comprehensive traffic and parking study. Please put up the next slide, thank you. As you can see up here on the screen, we indicated our study intersections as those in red along Sunrise Highway. We started at Rockwood Avenue, and we included Grand Avenue, Milburn, and Central, which all lie along Sunrise Highway. In addition to this, we relied on studies that were conducted by the Nassau County Department of Public Works. They were conducting the Grand Avenue Complete Streets Corridor Study, which extended from Merrick Road all the way through Milburn Avenue. And it's kind of difficult to see, but there's highlighted yellow intersections along Grand Avenue on that. And we relied on the studies for that, as well as the improvements that they were proposing along that corridor. Next slide, please. As part of our study, we evaluated existing traffic conditions, as well as 2029 no-build conditions and future 2029 build conditions for each of those 4 intersections highlighted in red. We also reviewed the Nassau County DPW's Grand Avenue Corridor Complete Street Study, as well as their proposed improvements to Grand Avenue, which were all lie within our study area. We looked at walkability to and from the train station, as well as in the downtown area. We reviewed vehicle crash data along Grand Avenue and Sunrise Highway to determine if there were any accident trends or patterns that need to be mitigated. We looked at site access requirements for new development to ensure safe access to properties and so that they don't impact traffic flow along main corridors. We looked at off-street parking requirements for each of the 3 separate BMX zoning sub-districts. And we looked at incentives to reduce off-street parking requirements, as well as increase FAR to increase for certain land uses, particularly those closest to the train station. We also looked at mitigation funding methods to determine how such improvements, if necessary, can be funded. Next slide, please. The findings of the traffic study indicated that traffic operations in 2029 no-build condition would be generally comparable to that of the build condition. This is primarily because a lot of retail use would be replaced with multifamily use. and during certain periods, traffic volumes would actually go down, such as in the AM peak periods on a typical weekday, as well as during the midday peak period. However, during the PM peak period, some traffic volumes may increase. In particular, because Sunrise Highway is such a heavily traveled corridor, operations at some intersections may deteriorate, such as at Sunrise Highway and Grand Avenue. And mitigation may be needed, which I will explain in a little further detail in a moment. We also reviewed the county's Complete Streets project, and we agree with their improvements that it would calm traffic, increase walkability, and improve safety along the Grand Avenue corridor. We also reviewed off-street parking requirements, and we agree that certain parking requirements can be reduced, especially for ones closest to the train station. And we also determined funding source, which could help pay for any mitigation, which I will discuss in a second. Next slide, please. In regards to our recommendations, we would recommend modifying signal timings, offsets, and traffic progression along Sunrise Highway to help improve traffic flow. We'd also recommend adding eastbound and westbound left turn lanes at the intersection of Sunrise Highway and Grand Avenue to help improve the overall operation of that intersection. That intersection is located in the core of the TOD district and received the heaviest amounts of increases to traffic. Density in areas closest to the train station could also be increased since they promote walkability and would therefore result in lower parking demands. As a result, off-street parking requirements for multifamily and retail and commercial uses could be reduced. Recommendations to control access to new developments were provided in order to provide safer operations and to reduce impacts to traffic flow. Incentives could be allowed for reduced parking requirements and increased FAR in exchange for community amenities as well as payments in lieu. There were thresholds that were outlined in the conditions and criteria section for which the incentives could be issued up to. The town would also have to establish a traffic mitigation fund, and most particularly for the mitigation improvements to Sunrise Highway at Grand Avenue. This fund would be created and developers would pay into it based upon the number of Saturday midday peak trips that they generated. Those funds could then be used to provide the mitigation measures in the future. That concludes the proposal on traffic. Unless you have any questions, I'll turn it over and talk about groundwater resources.
So another core topic that was reviewed in the DGIS was the groundwater resources and flooding. A major part of the Baldwin downtown and commercial corridor study was to provide resiliency within the Grand Avenue corridor as climate change happens and we are more susceptible to natural disasters and flooding, etc. It's very important that we take into consideration and make sure we are totally aware and regulating the possible stormwater and erosion requirements that would be within the BMX overlay district, since this is an area that is prone to flooding. So one of the findings that we came up with in the groundwater resources and flooding section of the DGIS includes that any development within the BMX district would be subject to compliance with the town's stormwater and erosion requirements. Those areas within the BMX district that are within a special flood hazard area would need to comply as well with the town and FEMA flood mitigation standards. And water efficiency measures and green infrastructure are encouraged in new development as part of the design guidelines. And the last topic we'd like to highlight is the aesthetic resources and community character. A large part and goal of the BMX overlay district is to make sure that the development is aesthetically pleasing and in line with what the community has voiced all along that they want to see within their Grand Avenue commercial corridor. So the increased height and density would be concentrated around the train station and there would be restrictive height limits proposed near single-family development. So as I described earlier, those commercial transition areas would be limited to 45 feet. Redevelopment and development would benefit the aesthetic character of the downtown through high-quality design and reduction in retail vacancies and aesthetic cohesion. And then finally, the incentives, the development incentives that we discussed earlier will add to public benefits and community character by incentivizing those public benefits and other types of proposals that could come forth and really help advance the community and their needs. So this concludes our presentation. As I mentioned earlier, the public comment period on the draft generic environmental impact statement and zoning ends September 16th. So we will be accepting comments that we will, and questions that we will respond to in the final generic environmental impact statement. Comments and questions can be submitted via email. The email is up on the screen there. It's baldwinscoping@tohmail.org, or you can send it via mail to Rebecca Sinclair or Richard Regina at Hempstead Town Hall, 1 Washington Street, Hempstead, New York. And you can also access the draft generic environmental impact statement at the web link above. And as I mentioned earlier, there are hard copies at the Baldwin Public Library and Town Hall.
Yeah, and I think, when we get comment questions, kind of what's next. Obviously, get your comments in. There's some folks here who want to speak. Stay engaged in the monthly meetings. I know, Councilwoman, I think you're going to keep going with
Marathon 3-hour sessions.
Yes. We have seen some quick wins. Small businesses come into Grand Avenue. Painting with a Twist is one opening, and there are others that want to get in. And then there are 3 developers that have proposed projects that we hear are coming around, and 5 or 6 are developers are looking. So we know there's activity, but we obviously have to carry this process toward the end so we can get that development moving in accordance with the community's goals. I just want to take a personal preference to say I want to thank the collaboration of Rebecca Sinclair and Rich Regina, who have just been fantastic in this process as far as staffing all you guys, and Shirley Braziel has also been great. That concludes.
Okay, thank you for a very thorough, comprehensive presentation that provided a lot of useful information. I'll ask you to stand close by in case there's some residents who have questions for you. Thank you. Okay, the first slip I have is from Michael Rainier.
Morning, my name is Michael Ranieri from Ingram Smith, 150 Motor Parkway, Hop, New York. I'm here on behalf of the Baldwin Union Free School District. The school district, they asked me to be present for the public hearing and really just asked me to make their presence known for the record. The school district doesn't take any specific position with regards to the matters before the board today, for the council today, but the district intends to be an active participant in all phases of this project as part of the ongoing efforts within the community. Thank you.
Great, thank you. We welcome their participation. Karen Maldovano.
Karen Montalbano, 2611 Park Avenue, Baldwin, New York. As you know, I'm a Baldwin resident, also longtime member of Baldwin Civic Association. A little bit of a difference here. I want to say thank you. Thank you to all of you for moving this along expeditiously, for giving us a plan after 20 years of stalled development in Baldwin and giving us hope, for all working together. That has been really such a great thing to see, and that bipartisan fashion has really, along with the zoning overlay, led to that $10 million grant, which I'm so looking forward to see what we can do with that money in our community. So this working together is what we need to succeed, and I just want to let you know that it has been much appreciated.
Thank you, Karen. Thanks, Karen. Eric Mahler.
Baldwin Chamber of Commerce president. We fully support this overlay district, and your vote of approval is a blessing to the Baldwin community, so please, without hesitation, continue on this progress. Thank you.
Thank you, Eric, and thank you for your participation in this whole process and all that you and Karen have done to move this thing forward. Thank you.
Thanks, Karen. Eric, and we promise you'll have some treats.
Thank God.
Nicholas from Son Ward.
Good afternoon, Supervisor, members of the board. My name is Nick Capadora from Son Ward, Coshigano. We represent Breslin Realty Development with respect to a parcel that's within the overlay, and we're very much in support of continuing the work that you started on and are continuing today. I also want to thank Rich Regina and Rebecca Sinclair for their coordination, and that we offer our assistance, if we can be of assistance, with the continued development of the regulations. We have some correspondence in that I'm not going to go through, I don't have enough time, but I'm sure in the coming days, weeks, months, we'll go through it and just offer our assistance and voice our support. Thank you.
Nita Meredith.
Nita Meredith, Baldwin resident. First of all, I am in support of this process, but in all things, I still have questions and concerns from many of the residents in Baldwin whose voices still have not been heard, considering that Baldwin runs from the bay to the parkway. There are businesses that have issue with regard to whether there's going to be inclusion with regard to any of these proposed benefits and assistance to develop all of Baldwin along Grand Avenue. Secondly, most of the residents are largely concerned about the fact that their major supermarket has yet to be restored. So again, that is a concern. So I'm just hoping that there is some flexibility within this, because I don't want to have to come back later and be told you were in the room when you saw how this package was presented and approved, and that there was no wiggle room. So I need to know, and residents need to know with regard to that, because there are other organizations that predate the Baldwin Civic Association. It takes nothing away from the work that they did, but the Baldwin Oaks Civic Association predates this scenario and has been looking for development in this area from the bay to the parkway for decades. So we are looking forward to that, and considering we have a brownfield region across the street from the town park in Cosneck that needs to be remediated, but it is outside of the overlay district. What do we tell the residents in the northern end of Baldwin with regard to that property? Secondly, the amenities that are going towards parking. Again, what is going to be addressing those issues when you're talking about increasing the lanes on Sunrise Highway, and you have a road calming process? You will now have 2 lanes turning from Sunrise Highway into 1 lane on Grand Avenue, and you cannot tell me that that's not going to pose some challenges. So again, I still have questions. I always will have questions, and I'm hopeful that we will continue, as Karen said previously, to work as a united front to represent all of the interests of all of Baldwin. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Maraday, and perhaps to address some of your traffic concerns, someone from VH1 can just meet with Ms. Maraday, on the sidelines and just kind of explain some things that she might have questions for. Thank you. Okay, I don't have any other slips on this public hearing. Is there anyone else who'd like to be heard? I think I see a hand, yes? Just take a deep breath, just say your name and address for the record, and then just say whatever you want to say.
Giselle Mendez, Baldwin resident, also on the BCA, and a business owner in town. And do you need address? You don't need
Baldwin.
Baldwin. So I have just like, well, I have many concerns, but I think we could all talk about that different, different time. But one main thing that I have a big issue with is the weight limit that is able to go through the town on Grand and on Merrick. Being that my business is on Merrick, I have 2 cars that was hit, where the cars are speeding by, that are trucks, and the trucks are there, cars are going around, so it's always a problem. Not to mention how many people have gotten hit by a car on that road because of the speed. So I was wondering, are they gonna, since it's Merrick, are they gonna try to slow down the traffic in that area right there between, on Grand and
Is this something that we looked at in our study?
This is actually something that the county looked at in their study, and they do propose geometric improvements to the intersection of Grand and Merrick to help better control traffic as it enters the intersection, to tighten it up a little bit, which will essentially slow traffic as it goes through that area.
But they propose it, but are they really gonna do it?
My understanding is they're in detailed design right now for
So
implementation.
that's gonna be added to it hopefully when everything starts to come together?
That's my understanding, yes.
Okay, what about the weight limit? Meaning we have tractor trailers coming through Grand, and also on Merrick. And, Rockford Center doesn't have that. They gotta make a left go on Sunrise and keep going. But to the west, they just keep flying by, so.
Yeah, I'd have to coordinate with the county. They're the ones that are going to put any weight restrictions on the roadways. So that is a question I can't answer.
So if you want, we can take your information, you can share your information, we'll try to get some more information from the county for you as part of their traffic calming measures that they're taking.
And lots of such. In reference to the parking, we do have town supplied parking, but nobody ever knows that it's there. What are we gonna do in reference to showing people, hey, there's actually parking back there, there's a parking over here. There's no signage that you can see where there's actually town parking.
Well, I think the hope is that once this area kind of becomes revitalized and you have bustling businesses there, that certainly the businesses that are there are going to try to let their customers know. We could probably put up a sign, municipal parking. I don't think that's going to be a challenge.
A sign.
Yeah.
Because, you could put it, people put the signs in front of the store, we have back parking, but nobody ever either sees it, and then a lot of businesses lose business because they don't even know that there's a parking or the little parking lot is hard to get to because they don't know beforehand, hey, there's a parking lot there.
Point
So they
well
just
taken.
keep going.
Sure, we can make sure that people are properly noticed that there's parking available. That's our hope, that we just have cars flowing into our parking lots because businesses are booming in Baldwin.
Alright, that's it.
All right, is there anybody else who'd like to be heard on this public hearing? Hearing none, may I have a motion?
Okay, just some procedural things. I moved to amend section 43(1.1)C such that it reads in pertinent part, community benefits or amenities outlined in section 431.1B. I move to close the public hearing on the DGIS and the proposed ordinance, keep the record open on the DGIS until 5 p.m. on September 16, 2019, and to keep the record open on the proposed ordinance for purposes of considering comments and amendments to the ordinance until such time as the board renders a decision. All that's required language, though.
I forgot the lawyers continued to talk. Okay, but anyway, I second the motion.
Madam Clerk?
Supervisor Gillen.
Yes.
Councilman Blakely.
I think it's great for the town, yes.
Councilman Diaz-Bazio.
Aye.
Councilman Dunn.
Aye.
Senior Councilwoman Guzman.
Very happily, yes.
Councilwoman King Sweeney.
Yes, with pleasure.
Councilman Mascarella.
Aye.
Okay, that concludes our public hearings. Madam Clerk, will you please call the administrative calendar?
Yes, there are items 12 through 52 on the administrative calendar. I also have an item of an urgent nature entitled Resolution calling a public hearing to review the recommendation of the Town of Hempstead Landmarks Preservation Commission that the Franklin Square Movie Theater at 989 Hempstead Turnpike, Franklin Square, New York, Section 35, Block 004, Lot 126, be designated an historical landmark. This will be item number 53 on the calendar.
With respect to the administrative calendar, item number 41 is an item that calls for the settlement of certain lawsuits. And with respect to the settlement with Double Eagle Golf Course, I move that that item be adjourned until October 2nd, since I've just become aware of some information that may be relevant as to whether or not we should settle this litigation. May I have a second on that?
Second.
Madam? This is the tabling item 41, Double Eagle until October 2nd. Madam Clerk?
Well, I have a question, Supervisor. Is there a chance that by October 2nd, that this matter won't be resolved? Maybe we should just adjourn it without date?
That would be acceptable to me as well.
That make more sense?
Yeah.
So you would be willing to amend that?
Yes. So, I will the second, the amended version. All right, so I will amend my motion to table item number 41 without a date. Madam Clerk?
Supervisor Gillen?
Aye.
Councilman Blakeman?
Aye.
Councilman Diaz-Bazito?
Aye.
Councilman Dunn?
Aye.
Senior Councilwoman Gooseby? Councilwoman King Sweeney? Councilman Muscarella?
Supervisor, I also have two proposed emergency resolutions. The first is the appointment of Dominic Longobardi as second deputy controller in the office of the town controller.
Is there any objection by the member of the board?
I object. I don't know why this is an emergency. I don't know how an emergency just all of a sudden happened between when we started this meeting and when I just received this, when Ms. Montalbano was speaking about 10 minutes ago. In fact, I did hear rumblings that there was going to be some urgent hand-up. I asked counsel to the majority if he could even give me the topic of what the emergency hand-up was, and he said no, he could not share that with me. I have not seen this. The members of the public haven't seen this. This is not the way government should be run. If you have something that's an emergency, you should discuss it with your board members before the meeting, and you should talk about it openly. And the members of the public have the right to know that there's going to be something handed up. Has anybody in the audience seen this?
No.
No, no one's seen this. Or this one, which is coming up next, which this one I get a kick out of. Resolution declaring the supervisor's directive that April Smith is acting controller and overseeing the day-to-day operations of the office will be null and void. That's quite comical as well. Under town law, I am the day-to-day manager of the town, and there's nothing to even nullify because there was no action by the board, so I don't even know what legal merit this has. But this is ridiculous. This is not the way government should be run.
I'm going to second the motion of my colleague, Esposito, and I want to thank him for the board making this appointment. Good job, thank you.
I'd like to respond if I might. So, Supervisor, the reason there is an emergency is because you decided that you were going to appoint your finance director as the acting controller, which is in violation of town law, which creates a conflict of interest. The controller should not be representing the supervisor. The controller should not be representing the town board. The controller is there to make sure that all of the financial important issues regarding the town are reviewed by that office, and that includes the budget. And when the controller finds that there's something that is not fiscally sound, it's the controller's job to push back when the town board or the supervisor want to do something that's contrary to what the controller thinks is prudent and fiscally sound. So the bottom line is you have somebody that you nominated who isn't in that position. She's in the position of being an advocate for you and your budget, which is perfectly fine. There's nothing wrong with it. But to carry those two jobs, it's like riding two horses at the same time. It doesn't work. So what we suggested in a letter to you, and we hope you consider it, is as follows. Let Ms. Smith work with the Controller's Office to prepare your budget, which you are going to present to the town board. And if you like, Ms. Smith can make that presentation as if she was the controller. But the code is very clear that the second deputy controller assumes the position of controller in the event there's a vacancy. And for the purposes of making it clear, there's a resolution that just makes it clear that Mr. Longobardi is the second deputy, because that is the mechanism that is in the town code. There is no mechanism for Ms. Smith to be appointed by you. And we want to thank Ms. Smith if she's filled in the week or 10 days that there's been a vacancy. And thank her for helping out, but really her role is to represent you, and the controller's role is to represent the people of the town of Hempstead.
So I think there lies in the fundamental difference between the way you see things, Mr. Blakeman, and the way I see things. There's not my budget, there's not your budget, there's the taxpayer's budget. The budget is prepared for the best interest of the taxpayers. That's who I represent, that's who Ms. Smith represents, that's who Mr. Longobardo represents, and that's supposed to be who you represent. So we shouldn't, there's been a warring budget last year, there shouldn't be a warring budget this year. We should all be working together, collaboratively, to make a budget that is the best budget, the most responsible budget for our taxpayers that they can have. That is how we should be working together. But I sent a letter in July of last year asking the town board members to work with me collaboratively on the budget. They declined to do so. Once the tentative budget was filed, I invited them all to come into my office. I cleared my schedule to meet with them. They didn't meet with me, and instead, on the hearing when we were trying to adopt the tentative budget as a preliminary budget, all of these people sitting here held a press conference and dropped 73 amendments to a budget in front of me that I had no time to review, that Ms. Smith had no time to review, and that the controller had no time to review, because they cut him out of the budget and hired somebody else on your dime to prepare these 73 amendments. That's bad government. There's not two budgets, there's one budget, and the people that's supposed to serve are the taxpayers of this town, and we should be working together and not working at odds. That's Ms. Smith's motion, that's her desire. I think that's Mr. Longobardo's desire, Mr. Capobianco's desire, and Mr. Ramos's desire, all of whom I've met with, and all who have worked very collaboratively with Ms. Smith, who is a licensed CPA, who has done budgets before, who prepared the budget in the town of North Hempstead, and has done an ample job working collaboratively with all of these gentlemen here. I thank you, Ms. Smith, and I thank you, gentlemen, for coming in and meeting with me and talking about the best way to move forward together.
Yeah, I'd like to respond to that. First of all, the town code is very clear that the controller, with the assistance of the supervisor and all the departments in the town of Hempstead, are to collaborate on the supervisor's budget that the supervisor presents to the town board. The town board then looks at the budget and they make a decision as to whether or not they want to amend that budget. And they do it according to law on the day that we did it. The reason why you claim you weren't part of it is because it was the town board's function at that point to look at the budget that you presented and then make changes if we saw fit. And we didn't vote on it that day. We voted on it, I think, 25 days after that, which gave the public, which gave you, which gave your office 25 days to review and comment on the changes that the town board wanted to make. And, you know, there are philosophical differences sometimes. You presented a budget with a tax increase. We wanted a budget with a tax cut. So the fact of the matter is there is a tension between the supervisor's budget and the town board. That's a healthy tension. That's called checks and balances. That's called being able to review what the supervisor and what the controller present and be able to make amendments if we have a philosophical difference or if we don't agree with the numbers that are presented with your budget. So it's the final budget is the people's budget. But the budget that you presented, according to law, is your budget. And the final budget is the budget we all vote on, which is the town's budget, which is the people's budget.
I must correct you on 2 points, Mr. Blakeman. We did vote that day. You dropped 73 amendments to the budget in front of me, and that day, you voted and changed the tentative budget to be the preliminary budget with those 73 amendments that I had no time to review. And as I recall, I tried to take a break to try to go talk to the controller and my finance director about them, and they didn't even want to let me take a break. I had to pull the clerk out with me so we could take a break, so I could at least look at them and count how many amendments there were. So yes, in fact, we did vote that day, and you did change the tentative budget. And I must correct you again, I know you're going with the spin, but the reality is I have proposed amendments to the budget, to the tentative budget, which I shared with all of you well in advance of the hearing, that would have a zero tax increase. So the budget as amended has zero tax increase. Thank you.
Can I respectfully disagree with the characterization, but reasonable people can differ and disagree.
Just to make it quite simple, day-to-day operation is the supervisor's job. We lost our comptroller, and she temporarily appointed somebody to fill that spot until the board meets. That's the way it's supposed to be. The board is meeting now, so we will make that appointment. Thank you for appointing a temporary person to fill in that gap, so there is no void. But Ms. Smith, thank you for filling in the slot until this time. At this time, we now will appoint somebody, and the board will do that.
Well, I thank you, Mr.
I second the motion that was made by our town councilman D'Esposito.
So now we will have a vote on whether or not this item is added to the agenda. Madam Clerk?
Supervisor Gillen?
No.
Councilman Blakeman?
Aye.
Councilman D'Esposito?
Aye.
Councilman Dunn?
Aye.
Senior Councilwoman Gooseby?
Aye.
Councilwoman King Sweeney?
Aye.
Councilman Moscarella?
Aye.
And I vote aye because of the fact we must follow the code. I hear what you're saying, Supervisor, but there are some things that are being done that are incorrect.
I have one more emergency resolution. Do I have to read it, or is it yours because you read it already? Just a catch. Resolution declaring the supervisor's directive that April Smith is acting controller and overseeing the day-to-day operations of the office of the controller null and void.
Second.
This again is a vote on whether or not this item will be added to the administrative calendar as number 55, is that correct? Yes, that's correct. Okay, Madam Clerk?
Supervisor Gillen?
No.
Councilman Blakeman?
Aye.
Councilman D'Esposito?
Aye.
Councilman Dunn?
Aye.
Senior Councilwoman Gooseby?
I have a statement that I would like to read. Supervisor Gillen, fellow council members, and town of Hempstead citizens. I believe that Ms. Smith is very qualified to serve as the town's controller based on her years of experience in municipal finance, which includes serving as the controller of the town of North Hempstead. However, I have concerns about the manner in which Ms. Smith was appointed the acting controller and the fact that she currently holds the position of secretary to the supervisor. The town board is the only legal authority that may appoint individuals to positions at the town of Hempstead. It is important that the authority of the town board to appoint individuals to positions in town government be guarded and respected. I abstain from voting on the resolution decline, null, and void the appointment by the supervisor of Ms. Smith as acting controller. So, in other words, I abstain.
Councilwoman King Sweeney?
Aye.
Councilman Moscarella?
Okay, would any of the council members like to sever any of the items on the administrative calendar?
I may. I move that item 40, insofar as to remove, I move to amend item 40, insofar as to remove the Dolores Sadaka and Gaspari Chumanello, I hope I pronounced his name right, from the committee. I don't think that 4 of the 8 members of the committee must be from the clerk's office. I think the clerk, Cabana, and Ms. Powers are all needed. Is there a second on the motion?
I can't.
Oh, that's right. Bruce?
I'm abstaining from it, so I can't second.
Good. just let me explain, look, it's 4 appointees on this, we're just making it 2. It's always been 6, we're gonna keep it 6, we don't need 8, 2 extras from the clerk. The clerk is serving herself on the board, as is our Councilman Esposito. That's why he can't second the motion.
I think we should give the clerk this is the taxi cab advisory committee. Maybe the clerk, do you want to say why you need these people on the board, if you need these people on the board?
Yes, well, I was told that I could appoint that many people, and there may be times when there are meetings where I can't attend, so I just wanted one of my deputies, either one or the other. So maybe if one of them could at least be included, that's all. I mean, I chose Mr. D'Esposito because I think his experience is proper, is actually perfect to be on this committee. So
I didn't know Mr. D'Esposito drove a cab.
There's a lot you don't know about me, Bruce.
Just his law enforcement, I thought would be relevant. And
I like Gaspar very much. I'm not going to vote against him.
So you want Gaspar?
I mean, so you're saying you just wanted 4 appointments and you could have someone cover the meeting if you're not there. This is like not really, I don't think, Mr. D'Esposito, I'll refer to you in your expertise. Is this controversial stuff, the taxi cab advisory committee?
Could be.
Yeah, I mean,
Listen, I'm happy to serve with the clerk on this committee.
If it's a weighted vote, and then you lose votes because if it's a weighted vote in their committee. That's my concern. If it is a weighted vote, then we'll compromise, and I'll go with disparity.
what do we vote on in the taxi cab advisory committee that's so controversial that we're worried about weighted votes?
We don't know. We don't know.
I didn't know that. We're just exploring. We're just exploring the existing law and possibly any necessary amendments. I didn't know it was controversial, but if the board decides they don't want my deputies.
I would ask that the motion made by Councilman Dunn be compromised and that we leave Mr. Tuminello on and
I agree. I accept.
Leave it at 3 appointments. Is that okay with you, Sylvia?
And it's seconded, so we have to. That's all. Those that can vote.
That's fine. Thank you for leaving Mr. Tuminello on.
Okay, so we're moving on the amendment to this item. We're voting on it, sorry. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Supervisor Gillen?
I like Ms. Sadaka very much, so I'm going to vote no.
Councilman Blakeman?
This is nothing against her, but I vote yes on the amendment.
Councilman D'Esposito?
I am abstaining as I am part or proposed part of the committee.
Councilman Dunn?
Aye.
Senior Councilwoman Gooseby?
Okay. Yes.
Councilwoman King Sweeney? Aye. Councilman Musgrove?
Aye.
Okay, may I have a motion on the administrative calendar?
Finished? Everything's done?
Does anybody want to sever or amend anything else or handle anything
wait a
else?
minute. Do I have to, my ethics guy, he's on here, right? No. He's on here.
It's on there.
Oh, okay, fine, so that's done. So I move the entire administrative calendar.
As amended.
Second.
All right, I have a number of slips of people who would like to be heard. First, Felix Procacci.
I want to bring up the fact that New York State town law does require, in the general powers of the town board, to appoint heads of departments, so it can't be done unilaterally by the supervisor. Also, since we're talking about budgets in this case, amendments to the budget should be done according to New York State law on recommendation of the supervisor, approval of modifications and transfers of money. So we kind of did it backwards because it's the town board, that's not under their rules, it's under the supervisor's rules. Also, what's missing from the administrative calendar is we need to have a resolution accepting the resignation of Kevin Conroy, who retired. That should be part of the resolution. And that's just, it should be, but it's even more important now because a lot of our budget projections are based on a projection of how many people retired. So if we're gonna say we're gonna save taxpayers $8 million to $12 million based on the number of retirees, it should be public information when they retire. So at the end of the year, people who monitor this could see that, well, they projected 100 and we only got, according to the foils I got, 44. But it should be public information, and we still don't put that on the resolution, which is required. I want to bring this up, not to talk about it specifically, but just we're asking for change funds of $100 each for the cash register at the building department. I agree with this, but there was a controversy as to whether things about $100 should even come before the town board. Everything should be coming before the town board. Like I said last time, petty cash funds of $1,500 and less, and how they are actually spent, according to New York State town law, is supposed to come before the town board, because any ways monies are spent needs to be accounted for, because there could be somebody stealing money at $100 at a time, and if you don't have any accountability, no feedback loop, and you just give it a one-way discretion on some commissioner who doesn't have any, required to give any feedback, you could steal money $100 at a time, and you could steal quite a bit of money $100 at a time. So it should be accounted for. And just since we're finally appointing the 5th member, we've been illegal for someone to come to the Hempstead board. Can we please publish all the rules in a clear, understandable way of how to make an ethics complaint? I know the law is up there, but who is, it says on the law, secretary to the Board of Ethics. It would be nice if you put a person's name there. Thank you.
Mr. Bercacci. Diane Madden?
Diane Madden, Hempstead. Full disclosure, I'm running for Town of Hempstead Supervisor. Item number 42, the various offices and positions. I understand that there is some kind of change being made with Ms. Fogarty at the animal shelter, but it wasn't specific. Nor was it specific in August. Is there what is that change being made to this employee?
Mr. Simon, are you here? Mr. Simon? Are you aware of a change for Ms. Fogarty at the animal shelter? No. It's not. No, we're not aware of anything going on. She's not on the personnel calendar.
For today, was it for an amendment? Because she is. I looked up the documents before the town board meeting. Was it the August meeting?
I'm not sure because I don't have that calendar in front of me, but there's no Fogarty on today's personnel calendar.
Okay. With regards to these committees for the towing, the taxi cab, is this something new?
No.
I believe it was provided for in the town court, in the code, but it was never really officially formed. So in reviewing it, I thought it would be a good thing to form them, and I asked Mr. Diaz, Councilman Diaz-Rosito as well to join. So because I think it's important things that need to be looked into.
Right, absolutely. I'm just wondering because there's never been any kind of committee as such regarding the animal shelter. So on that subject, I'd like to know if anything was put together regarding the RFP responses for the trainer, for the operational inspection, anything.
So for the operational audit, my understanding is we only got one response, so we put it back out again to try to bring in some more responses.
Is the current lawsuit still in place against the county regarding the county's audit, the operational audit? I know you were going to have a conversation with Mr. Rott at the last meeting when I had asked how is it possible that an RFP is out to do an audit operationally of the animal shelter while taxpayers are funding a lawsuit to fight an operational audit at the animal shelter.
I believe we're trying to settle that litigation now. Is that right, Mr. Rob?
That's correct.
Okay, so you're in settlement conversations?
Well, it's kind of, the whole lawsuit is pretty much moot at this point since we're doing an operational audit, so we're trying to just discontinue the lawsuit.
Well, not really, because an operational audit by the county will require the county to hand over any findings to the district attorney, where in the case of a hand-picked, cherry-picked audit to be done by an outsider, you basically get to choose who's doing the audit, and essentially, according to the years and history of the town of Hempstead, basically pick the outcome as well. And someone from the outside that's doing an audit operationally at the shelter may not know what to look for and may not understand what possible criminality is in comparison to the Nassau County team of auditors. So I completely disagree with that, and if that's the plan, to do away with the operational audit for the county, to handpick someone to do an operational audit, that is not in the best interest of the animals, and it's certainly not in the best interest of the taxpayers. Thank you.
Ms. Gordon?
Rory Gordon, Hop, New York. And number 48, Building Construction Administration. There's a little paragraph in there, it says, "Is the intent of these provisions to prohibit impropriety and the appearance of impropriety? What consequences will employees endure that violate this statute?"
This is just a call for the public hearing will be on at the next town board meeting, I think.
Okay, okay.
Yes, September 24th.
Oh, all right, let's see, so I have to go. On number 35, who is the secretary for the Town of Hempstead Board of Ethics?
We've just, I think, in this calendar, Senior Councilman Guzzi is just appointing her designee to the Board of Ethics. So they're going to convene, and they haven't convened yet because we've been waiting for people to be appointed. So now the town board majority has appointed their person. I have appointed my representative or my designee for the board, and Senior Councilwoman in this meeting is appointing her person to be on the Board of Ethics, and the town attorney is also on the Board of Ethics. So they'll decide who's going to have what office when they meet, according to the code.
Prior to this new ethics committee, when is the last time the old ethics committee met?
Mr. Ron, can you answer that?
I do not have that information available.
Did they ever meet?
We don't know that information. I do not have that information available.
Okay. Number 27. I was not aware there were 8 cash registers in the building department. Where are they located? I know the main one. I thought that was the only one.
I don't know if we should disclose that because of where we're keeping cash in town hall. I don't think we want to say where those cash registers are, just as a matter of public safety.
What's the purpose of it?
Well, what is the need to have 8 people collecting money, I guess would be a better way to put it.
I mean, Commissioner, what do we collect money for? Permit fees?
That's right in the main room.
We can't tell people where they are, so how do they collect money?
If I can just, before the commissioner says whatever it is he'd like to say, departmental needs would be the answer. And I don't know how far we want to go in talking about cash and cash registers, but if the commissioner wants to add something, but departmental needs would be the answer.
I'm concerned about 8 salaries. I didn't even know that such a situation existed in the building department.
The answer would be, my answer would be departmental needs.
Okay, on number 25, There's a resolution here about printing. With the reduction of printing, is there a reduction of payroll? Since you've taken your office, because you've really done a good job on getting rid of all those mailers. Okay, there's occasional mailer, but it's nothing like it was before.
This is an award of a contract, number 25.
Right.
We got 2 bids, and this is the lowest bidder that is being awarded the contract.
It's in the printing department, correct?
It's an outside vendor that's being brought in.
Oh, so that's on top of the salaries that we already paid for the printing department. It's not incumbent in the actual.
It's a maintenance agreement. It's a maintenance agreement. So they maintain some of our equipment.
And number 23, how does this work when the date's already passed, but we're going to do the resolution today?
This is for...
They're ratifying and confirming resolutions.
I'm sorry?
These resolutions ratify and confirm the action that was taken to use the parking.
Don't you do that beforehand?
We have been trying to make a push in the clerk's office to make sure that applicants get their applications in before the date, but because especially in the summer when we only have 1 board meeting per month, it's been harder for them to do that. We're trying to get, in the past they could get away with doing this, we're trying to push them to get their applications in earlier with plenty of time so we can do it beforehand. We're trying to move in that direction.
Okay, and number 22, this file trail thing that just eats at my craw because there's thousands of files just tossed all over the place in the building department. Any day of the week you could go back there and look. Any progress in getting into the 21st century?
We're trying to make that migration right now. This is a sole source company that maintains the software that they currently use in the building department. So this is a sole source, so that's why they have to be the one to get this work.
It fails. There's so many files that they can't find. Or they find the file and there's nothing inside of the file. It's just a terrible system and they keep renewing it and renewing it. You gotta go digital like New York City. And I know you want to. And I appreciate that because I spend a lot of time in the building department. And item number 21, who is the council, I don't know how you say this word, EMERITUS?
I don't know, 21 looks like it's
one of the people that has to attend.
That authorized me to go to their training.
yes, the $500 fee for attendance.
This is mandatory training that members of the Board of Zoning Appeals must go to every year. It's required by the state of New York.
I understand that, just so I have my own education, it said council, and how do you say the word EMERITUS? Yes, ma'am.
They read everything, so they should know.
I would have to think that that's a typo.
There it is, it's informally.
That's a form of council. It might be Richard and Gina, but I'm going to guess it refers to a council who was here many years ago and they just copied the wrong word. They just copied the resolution and it shouldn't say council members. So,
Representing the training.
That doesn't need it for the Board of Appeals.
All right, well, we'll get back to you with that information.
I was just curious, and how many people actually go to that seminar?
The entire zoning board members
And council to the zoning board?
and the council, yes.
And council to the zoning board?
Under the law, it's not required, but when I was counsel and the counsel before me usually went with them.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Gordon. Mita Merida?
How could Goofy not know she reads everything in every calendar? But like, cut it out. How do you know? You didn't read everything before he
Because conduct today is not hot, okay? It's not. It's cold in this room. I got a couple of issues. Maybe Mayor Baldwin resident. I'm concerned, as usual, with regard to a number of these contracts. I'm still not seeing any designation that I had asked previously to be inclusive of minority women in veteran businesses. Generally, as you may or may not be aware, that in government contracting, they do make an effort to be inclusive in their documents when they're doing business and to designate that a contract has been awarded to a minority woman or veteran-owned business. I've yet to see that in our documents. That is disconcerting to me now in 2019, particularly when we're talking about going into a budget. I can only hope that this body will finally, at some point, look into actually putting some funding to do some real outreach and development for our service-disabled businesses, so that when we hear developers coming to the table, I'm paying more than a request to have a flag put out in front of their building. We need these businesses that have job creation models so that we can hire other veterans, that we can build up minority women-owned firms, so that we can keep residents here who can provide, who can pay for affordable housing. We haven't reached the level of affording luxury housing as yet. Unfortunately, I was outside for the bulk of the discussion with regard to the appointment for the controller. I do want to commend the supervisor for at least trying to keep the operations of the town in place. And unfortunately, there have been many missteps by this board with regard to appointments and cozy arrangements that have not benefited the public and the residents. So I do commend you for that. If you were outside of the code, then you have to follow the code. But we all have to follow the code, and you all have to follow the code. So it is hopeful that whoever the appointee is, that there is some kind of process, that we do not have to go through another family chain to find that there is another cousin, brother, sister-in-law, wife, niece, or daughter that is getting an appointment for this type of position. Because again, residents are watching, and we are very concerned about the atmosphere and the attitude that continues to prevail in this township. It is disheartening to hear the reputation of this township and this county outside of this area. So I am hopeful that we can do a better job this time around, because residents are distressed, they are in need, and they need to know that their elected officials are representing their interests. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Meriday. Ms. Jacobs, Pearl Jacobs.
Pearl Jacobs, Uniondale. Regarding item 16 on the administrative calendar, naming an unnamed street in the unincorporated area of Uniondale, 1 Law Enforcement Way, Town of Hempstead. Is this pertaining to the new Nassau County Police Department at Carmack?
Yes, it is, and the commissioner reached out and asked if we would do this, and so we're doing this today.
Well, that's fine with me. Nassau County Police Department does a fantastic job. We're fortunate to have them. And thank you for putting the name Uniondale there. I appreciate that. Senior Councilwoman Goolsby, I have a question for you. Do you, all the mailings that go out, do you sort of vet and look at the mailings that go out to your constituents? Well, I have one here in my hand that's from the Don Clayton, receiver of taxes, sending it out to Uniondale residents, announcing meetings. Uniondale Public Library, Livrary. It's a misspelling. I didn't say you, I said it came out from Don Clavin. I asked you, do you vet mailings that go out to your constituents? You do? Did you catch this? Okay. And the reason why I bring this up, is because, you know, this to me speaks to neglect and lack of oversight when it comes to public communications. And I do remember at a previous town hall meeting that Supervisor Dillon was presented with great opposition when she proposed cutting the budget for mailers. And in my opinion, when large amounts of taxpayers' monies are spent to send out mailers, they should at least be reviewed and at least spell checked. Councilwoman Guthrie, do you agree? That they should, okay, I'll repeat myself. I said this speaks to neglect and lack of oversight when it comes to public communications. I remember at a previous town hall meeting when Supervisor Gillen was presented with great opposition when she proposed cutting the budget for mailers. And my opinion is that when large amount of taxpayers' monies are spent to send out mailers, a lot of money is spent to send out these mailers, they should at least be reviewed and they should be spell checked.
Well, listen, possibly, you should go to the person who's responsible.
Well, you're my councilwoman, but if I was the council person, I would review every mailer that's coming out to my community.
But is it not?
You represent your community. This is I'm not making, everybody makes mistakes, this is a lot of money. It's not like you're making a typo on when you're writing a paper. No, I'm not. Well, who else do I go to? City council.
You don't come, go to the person who sent it out.
Who else do I go to?
Go to the person.
I say that you should at least review every
I don't review
communication that comes out to your constituents.
Not me. You're not speaking, you're wrong.
May I add something?
You're wrong.
Yeah, I don't think it's reasonable, and it's certainly not a responsibility of a member of the town board to review the mail of any other town board member or any elected official in the town. I think that is really an unreasonable.
Well, Councilman Blakeman.
I don't know why she would pick me for this. I only take care of my own person. Not his.
If I was a council person, I would tell you what I would do. I would read every mailer that comes out to my constituents. That's what I would do. Well, that's what I would do.
And then go to him and speak to him about it.
I don't think the tax collector shared that with everybody. I certainly didn't see it before it went out, but when I tried to stop his mailings, they passed legislation, so I couldn't stop
Well, you know what?
those mailings.
But you said I would bring this down. I think this is very silly, and I think that's something that should not be said here.
Thousands and thousands of dollars.
Well, then you need to go speak to him. He's not here.
Neglect and lack of oversight. Thank you.
Excuse me, but not for nothing. If we're going to criticize mailing and how much things cost about a spelling error, we should also criticize when there's mailings sent out costing nearly $75,000 and they get to homes after the event has even taken place. And that's happened under the Gillen administration. So let's point out the facts and not only focus on a spelling error.
Well, I'm bringing this to you now.
And I'm just clearing up the record to let you know that there's been mailings that have sent, they have to be rushed overnight, overtime, all kinds of stuff, and then they arrive at people's houses after the event's taken place.
Neglect and oversight. Thank you.
And I'd like to say to you too, I don't read the mailers from your home either.
Oh, you don't? Well,
I don't
there you
read
go.
them.
Mary Ellen Craig. All right, that's all the slips that I have. Oh, I'm sorry.
Santino administration, they didn't discuss mailings.
Just takes me a little longer to get up.
I'm sorry, Ms. Craig, I didn't
Before you
see you.
speak, I just wanted to weigh in, and the senior councilwoman had nothing to do with that printing and why she was being beat up for something that she had nothing to do with. I just can't sit back and let this happen and go unanswered. He had nothing to do with that mailing. To say something to this woman who's worked so hard for the district is really pathetic.
All right, Ms. Craig, you're up.
Mary Ellen Cray, 436 Locust Avenue, Uniondale. On number 16, where exactly is that one law enforcement way?
It's going to be right in front of the new police academy that they're building.
And where is that being built?
It's right near, it's adjacent to like Nassau Community College.
Oh, it's where all that building?
It's on the same property.
Currently, right now?
Yes.
That's not part of the Hempstead Plains?
It's, I don't.
At one time it was, yes. The whole National Community College and Hofstra was on the Hempstead Plains. Yes. I graduated Hofstra, I graduated Nassau.
The current Hempstead Plains. Thank you. Item
The
number...
road exists, the road does exist already, so they're just renaming it. They're not putting.
Sorry, I didn't have that. The roads already exist, I said.
Yes,
So that is that loopy road that goes around the perimeter?
right, that goes by where the building is going for the
And it
academy.
connects to Endo Boulevard.
I believe so. It's been a while since I've been over there, but yeah, I believe so.
Item number 19, so this authorizing the renewal application, where is this youth services going to youth project, where is it going to be located, please?
It's the Office of Family Services Commissioner. Do you know exactly where it's located? It's here. I'm gonna get the resolution. Mr. Rod, do you know where this is located?
19.
Mr. Bakich is not here. Oh, Ms. Brooks, can you answer this? It's where,
application for a grant.
Yes, it's not application on the grant.
it's just a grant that we're applying for from the state of New York. Is that right, Ms. Brooks?
That's right.
Thank you.
So for not any particular project.
That's right.
Well, I would like to express my thanks for the funding for Uniondale Community Council Youth Project, for our summer camp. Thank the board. Thanks Senior Councilwoman Gooseby for your advocacy, because it makes a big difference to the children of Uniondale. And on number 28, for the Department of Parks, the splash pad. Our summer camp used the splash pad at Bernard Brown Park every week during its summer camp. So that's a very useful and helpful thing during the summertime.
Something very nice over there for you.
Yes, it makes a big difference, and the children really do appreciate that, especially this summer when it was so hot. On item number 34, so I'm wondering, is this on the east or the west side of Merrick Avenue? Is it where the Jewish Center was or near Corporate Drive? This 6-story apartment building with the...
I think it's Sims.
Oh, where Sims was?
Sims.
Okay. All right, so there is no residential area behind it. That was my concern, 6 stories. On item number 47, I'm in favor of this because the news on these devices continues to get worse every time. And look forward to the hearing.
Thank you, Ms. Craig. Okay, I do not have any other slips on the administrative calendar. Is there anyone else who'd like to be heard? Hearing none, Madam Clerk, will you please call the roll for the administrative calendar?
Supervisor Gillen?
On the administrative calendar, I vote yes with certain exceptions. On item number 18, while the RFP committee may have selected this vendor, I feel that his work on behalf of the town for the past years has been subpar at best. Because of the poor work done by this contractor, we have been sued by basically every major telecom carrier, and whatever we may have collected in permit fees has been lost to outside counsel costs. I'm not sure how this conclusion was reached, but there is no way I support this vendor to continue working with the town. I vote no on item 18. On item number 42, which is the personnel calendar, I vote yes on all personnel with the exception of Mark Mercado and James Belucas. Neither of these raises were discussed with my office. I object to the town board continuing to put forward these unwarranted items onto the agenda and onto the personnel calendar. There are still 22 part-time workers who we are required to make full-time off the Tosner list. And throwing money away to things you don't need makes it harder to get the things that we have to do done. Additionally, as I stated, a major concern of mine during the budget process last year, Felix, here you go, we are missing the less savings, that artificial accounting trick that was put into the budget over my objection. We are missing it. The board promised that we would see. Based on the numbers shared by the Controller's Office, we are currently $3.5 million in the hole on our full-time salaries because we are not achieving the savings the board alleged last October that we would see. Unbudgeted raises and promotions only make matters worse, and I cannot support that kind of irresponsibility. I vote no on those two individuals, again, because they were never discussed with my office. With respect to item number 54, I think Mr. Longobardo has done great work for the town. He's been a real asset for us. However, he did express to me that he thought there was a potential conflict of interest from him taking on the role of controller because he is also the mayor of Floral Park. And to avoid any appearance of a conflict of interest, he declared to me that he thought that was maybe a problem. So that's why I vote no on him. Again, no comment on your professionalism, Mr. Longobardo, and your help that you have been throughout this year and now with the budget process. And with respect to number 55, I have power under town law to manage the day-to-day operations of the town, and I will continue to do so, and I don't even think there's anything to nullify, but I vote no to 55.
Councilman Blakeman?
Yes, I'm going to vote yes on the administrative judge. I vote aye for the administrative calendar. I'd like to point out that with respect to item 18, I am going to vote for that, but I was distressed to learn that this particular contract had been going on for some time without town board approval. I brought it to the attention of the town board. I'm happy that it went out for RFP because basically we can't have a practice where we're going to just continue contracts without town board oversight.
Councilman Diaz-Pazito?
I vote aye with the exception of 39 and 40, for which I recuse myself, being that I am a proposed member of each committee.
Councilman Dunn?
I vote aye on all the items, and including 40 as amended.
Senior Councilwoman Gooseby?
I vote yes on all except 55, which I abstain.
Councilwoman King Sweeney?
Yes on all except number 38. I abstain because I received a campaign donation from one of the principals involved.
Councilman Mostrella?
I vote aye on all.
Okay. That concludes the formal portion of today's town board meeting. We will remain in session to hear public comment. The first person we have is Felix Picacci.
Don't you have to have a motion to adjourn first?
I'm sorry, yes, we need a motion to adjourn. May I have a motion? Clerk?
Supervisor Gillen?
Aye.
Councilman Blakeman? Aye. Councilman Diaz-Pazito?
Aye.
Councilman Dunn?
I think on the motion to adjourn.
All right. Senior Councilwoman Gooseby? Councilwoman King Sweeney?
Aye.
Councilman Mostrella?
Aye.
Okay, now, public comment. Mr. Picacci.
At the last meeting, the town board approved the resolution placing limits on the amount and duration the contract can be modified before it needs to be presented to the town board. Despite claims made by the town board members, this provision provides no safeguard because if the town board violated this policy, it would be up to the town board to punish itself. There is no stated punishment for a violation. The August 2nd, 2019 decision by the town's compliance officer, Thomas Luby, in response to the town board violation of its own procurement policy for professional services, implies that any contract directed by the town board is legal, essentially nullifying all procurement rules passed by this town board. So if the town board passed a resolution today that violates the policy passed on August 6th, like the Malibu contract, no one besides the town board would have the power to enforce the policy prohibiting this action. In contrast, the compliance officer's law does specify a punishment, and that punishment is a fine of up to $1,000 or up to 1 year in prison. In the case I reported to compliance officer Mr. Wildig, there is irrefutable evidence that shows he interfered with his own investigation. Mr. Wildig did not explain why the procurement policy for professional services over $10,000 did not apply to a procurement of $50,000 in professional services. The compliance officer is required to ensure compliance with all local laws, the town code, and resolutions adopted by the town board. On August 11, 2019, I sent a letter to Mr. Wildig, CCing the entire town board and the town attorney, asking him to further explain his decision. I did not receive any response from Mr. Wildig or anyone else. This lack of response demonstrates this town government has no interest in enforcing procurement regulations. Consequently, I reported this crime to the Nassau County District Attorney's Office. Regardless of Mr. Wildig's intent, it is clear that his report showed a level of incompetence that should not be tolerated in such a responsible position. Therefore, I am calling on Mr. Thomas Wildig to resign immediately and for the town board to fire him at the next meeting if he doesn't. Some town board members go out of their way preaching to residents how they stand for ethics and are fighting to end the corruption tax. Here is their opportunity to demonstrate this commitment with actions instead of words. The evidence against Mr. Wildig is irrefutable. Mr. Wildig is either totally incompetent or is corrupt, and in either case, the evidence shows he does not have the qualifications to be the town's compliance officer. Mr. Wildig may have also violated paragraph C, section 65-4, which prohibits political activities because his company, TCK Investigations, in which he is the president, contributed to the Nassau County and North Valley Stream Republic committees in April and May of this year, according to BOE records.
Thank you, Mr. Bacacci. Diane Madden?
Diane Madden, Hempstead, full disclosure, I'm running for town of Hempstead supervisor. So, supervisor, will you be asking for that resignation of the compliance officer?
This is your time to make your comments.
Will you be asking for that resignation?
Do you have anything else to say? I'd like me to speak about the animal shelter.
Oh, I do want to speak about the animal shelter, but Felix just made a comment, and I was wondering if, I'm really not surprised that anyone else is responding. I was just wondering where your position is.
We've been looking into the matter raised by Mr. Bacacci, and my office did respond to him.
That's not what he just said. The surveillance cameras, I'm told, at the animal shelter picked up on a dog being abused and was handled by someone in the behavior department. Immediately after that, the person was told that they are no longer able or given permission to even touch an animal, and they were transferred out. Was your liaison told about this? Is anyone here representing the animal shelter here to discuss that? And was the surveillance information handed over to the district attorney?
We can certainly look into that. What day did this happen?
I'll get back to you on the date. It was a few weeks ago. Look into it. Who is here to represent the animal shelter? It sounds to me like you know about this already.
I don't know what you're talking about. Commissioner, do you know what she's talking about? See?
Excuse me?
If you share the information with us, we'll look into the matter for you.
He doesn't know about it? Is that
He
what's...
does not know about it.
I really prefer everything to be on record, so there's no one here at the animal shelter that is familiar with this incident.
I don't even know what day you allege the incident happened. I don't know.
Within the past week. Would it help if you knew the exact date?
Why don't you tell us the information so we can look into it?
I will get the exact date.
And who was involved, and we'll look into it.
Okay, I certainly will. This is something that you should know about, though, and if it's not being reported to your liaison or your office, I would think that you would be a lot more upset about this than anyone else. The balance of the $10,000 increase to pay for advertising of animals at the animal shelter, I can see why the controller had such a difficult time, because apparently there's money coming out to settle lawsuits and whatnot from this $10,000 fund. And basically all that's been spent on the animals, according to this, to advertise them. By the way, some of them are very urgent, and you have a rescue coordinator that doesn't even outreach for them anymore, is $300. Could anyone explain that to me? And who is overseeing this money? And how do you only spend $300 on a $10,000 budget to advertise animals?
I think your questions could be answered in writing if you make a formal request.
I've been asking questions in writing and not getting a response for a long time. So are you suggesting if I put this in writing, your office will respond?
I'm suggesting that if you put it in writing, someone will respond.
Okay, I'll do that, Mr. Ryan. The $50,000 amendment where commissioners can basically hand out $50,000 contracts without going before the board. I would like to suggest that that is amended once again to cut it back to $5,000. When you talk about being the day-to-day, you're looking over the operations, how do you vote to allow commissioners to spend up to $50,000 unlimited, and it doesn't even limit or prohibit them from giving these contracts out to friends or family?
Thank you, Ms. Madden. Rory Gordon?
You voted yes on that, Laura.
Your turn.
Hi, Rory Gordon, Hauppauge, New York. Does the town of Hempstead require all the code enforcement officers to complete the 24-hour training?
Commissioner, yes?
Yes, we did.
Yes.
And are there any ramifications if they do not complete their certification?
It's a requirement of their employment.
And they have to do that every year?
It's every year or every 2 years, Commissioner.
Every year? Okay. Would an individual receive a raise or a promotion if they had not completed their 24-hour certification early? Would that put a blemish on the record?
I would think that they wouldn't be able to continue to be code enforcement officers.
Okay.
But then maybe if it goes 11, 13 months or so, it's some leeway there. If it's done, it has to be done once a year.
Okay. Do we get a refund from Bianco if code enforcement officers do not show up for the training? Okay, do we know how many people actually are supposed to show up for the meetings? Well, based on the contract that you had, I did the math, it's 55. I just wanted to make sure that I could verify that. And the town of Hempstead pays for the Bianco memberships every year, is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. And can anybody explain why FEMA was at the town of Hempstead at the building department for several days last month?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear your question.
Why was FEMA at the town of Hempstead building department for several days last month?
What was FEMA at the town of Hempstead?
Representative from FEMA.
I don't know, but I don't think that's an unusual thing.
When's the last time that FEMA was at the town of Hempstead doing, according to Newsday, some sort of inspection of the services that were provided to the town?
That kind of, you should FOIL that information if you have it.
What specifically should I FOIL? What specifically should I FOIL to get that?
Whatever the questions that you're asking, when they were here, when they were...
No, I know when they were here, it was in Newsday.
I don't have that information yet.
Okay. Thanks.
do crawl, breakneck. Bruce, I'm glad you're here, because the first part of my speech has to do with you. You're making a speech? A little bit.
Let him make his speech because he has
Free of
15
charge.
minutes. Don't mess with him.
You commented at the last board meeting, and I will paraphrase, you said you were open to discussing the idea of having only rescue animals being sold in stores rather than puppy mill dogs being sold with the help of the corrupt AKC, the American Council. Anyway, I took you at your word that you were sincerely open to the idea of curtailing the horrific abuse occurring for dogs, particularly the mother dogs in puppy mill stores. I called your office with the idea of setting up a meeting the following week. After 10 days and 3 phone calls later, I realized that I was not going to get a response. On August 20th, I sent an email just to have a written record of my futile attempts to reach you. Surprise of all surprises, there was no response to my last attempt. You volunteered a meaningless soundbite indicating that you cared about the plight of abused animals. As far as I can recall, you have never stepped up to help the animals at the town shelter. Your position removing Mike Pastore, who has committed many instances of total neglect upon our animals, is one of silence. Apparently, it is okay with everyone that he inspected the Utica facility, gave it a clean bill of health, while shortly thereafter horrific abuse was discovered there. Did you then call for his removal or ask that we send money to the facility that took him in? Obviously, we all know the answer to that was no. Maybe we can ask Brock his opinion. Oh, sorry, I forgot. Pastore and Fonte had him killed. Fonte was hired at $54 an hour after she lied about all of her qualifications. Did anybody object to this theft of public money? She is the patronage employee with no qualifications and nobody objected. I think it was extremely rude of you not to call me back. Hopefully everyone, including your constituents on election day, may now realize that, as many politicians do, you speak meaningless sound bites that are simply designed to make you look sincere and caring for a brief moment. As we've clearly established, we've done precious little to assist these helpless animals in the town of Hempstead. There are many reasons to support Diane Madden for town supervisor. I don't have the time here to recite them all. One main reason is she isn't the majority of people on this stage. Everything here is done in silence. Why is Pastore still here? Who is making that decision? Is it corrupt party bosses on both sides of the aisle? Why do they get to decide who is to be hired by the supervisor for other positions? I think it is long past the time where the public needs to clean house and elect officials who want to hire people who are actually qualified, not to donate to the party and get rewarded with jobs. Resolutions are proposed here knowing they can't possibly pass, but just simply to look good. The other side tables what they don't like and thrives on inertia. The net result of these redundant machinations is simply proving that Barnum was right and we are the suckers. Thank you.
I'm just going to respond for 1 minute. First of all, you're right, I'm wrong. I apologize. I checked with my staff. You did call. My intention was to call you back. I apologize. It fell through the cracks. So, if you meet with my assistant, I would love to talk about ways in which we can get more rescue animals to good homes. Because my son has a rescue dog. I think they're great dogs. I don't know why people go out and breed dogs when there's so many wonderful rescue dogs, but everybody's entitled to their own way, you know, how they want to interact with animals. But so I apologize. You're right, I was wrong.
Okay, thank you. All right. Ms. McCray, Ms. Mariella?
Mary Ellen Cray from Uniondale. I have strong appreciation of the forward-looking, cutting-edge town environmental efforts and the work of the Department of Conservation and Waterways. Therefore, I was delighted to read in the Adelphi magazine of a collaboration of the college from which I earned my degrees and this town department on oyster reef restoration, including student volunteers from the biology and environmental studies departments. So that was a real pleasure. And along the line of environmental issues, I urge the town to focus on areas where milkweed could be developed to provide the preferred plant for monarch butterflies. As you probably are aware, these are the only migratory butterflies in the world, and they are in decline. Whatever can be done to provide necessary habitat should be encouraged, perhaps in the Levy Preserve and town parks. Thank you.
Thank you. Sean Bell? Todd Field? No, Cooperton? Cooperton. Okay, Gregory, I didn't pronounce your last name, Reason?
Ricer.
Ricer? Building permit process.
Good afternoon. My name is Gregory Reisertz. I live at 380 Willow Street, South Hempstead. Thank you, Supervisor Gillen, and all council members for this opportunity to speak with you. I'm here today to share my experience regarding obtaining a residential building permit for my home. During that process, I found the town of Hempstead staff cordial, helpful, and professional. But the actual permit process was obscure and confusing. There were multiple lines that I was instructed to wait on, only to learn different information or to speak to different people, which, while somewhat understandable, felt like they were all working in silos, just waiting for that specific step of the process to be completed only. And everything seemed to require an in-person visit, which is difficult for a working person. I'm here to ask you if you're aware of this, and if there's anything you can do about it.
Are you still in the process of trying to get the permits? Are you still in the process of trying to get the permits?
No, I'm not. I actually deliberately waited until I was done to experience the whole process. So I'm not here to say I need help getting it done. I'm here because I enjoy in my work business process, and I see the problem. And it just lacks some definitions, some formality. But again, the people are very helpful. But there's no process. So that's my question.
Okay. Would you like to meet with our commissioner so that you could speak with him and see if there's something you can do to help us? Because we are looking for people who are having problems who would like some help. We would like to have you join us if you can. We're trying to open on Saturdays and Sundays to make it a little bit easier for our residents. And if you would like to sit with us, we would appreciate that.
Sure. So it does sound like you're aware of it.
We already, well, some people come with different problems, so, it's a large town, so we just try to find a way, if there's something that you bring it up that we need to use you.
I mean, I think we're in the process right now, we have been over the last couple of months of putting a group together to look at issues exactly like this. I mean, if you're a South Hempstead resident, so you live in my district, if you would be interested, I know time's not always easy to get to town hall, but we are going to try to make the meetings as accessible as possible. If it's something that you're interested in, I think you're the last speaker, so I'd be happy to speak to you after the meeting and get your information and get it to the office. So when they do have this initial meeting, maybe you can be part of it.
You could work for free.
Mr. Reiser, I think you probably are aware that this is something that's been a concern for me since I first took office. I've been trying to bring in an outside expert to find efficiencies, to improve operations in the building department, to find solutions to make that building department just operate more efficiently and make it a better experience for residents, because your comments are not isolated comments. But I've been repeatedly obstructed by this board in doing that, and I don't think throwing money at a problem and costing taxpayers millions of dollars by having people, the same people doing the same thing on Saturday and Sunday is gonna solve the problem, so.
Roger, excuse me, I don't think you should say that, because we've been working very hard. I have told you about some of the problems we have down there to make it very hard for other people to do whatever we need to do. So let's just work together and stop this and just do what we need to do. If you'd like to help us, we'd like to help us. We are trying. And because one of the things you know, we are short-staffed, and they don't even have a decent place to work. They're working on like a bunch of mice in one area. You know that. So let's be fair. We're concerned, I'm concerned about this town. I'm concerned about making sure that residents get the best service. I don't like the kind of things that you're saying all the time. It's not good to be negative all the time. We should have some positiveness. And I thank you, sir, for being positive, because you did come here after you've gone through the process and you're letting us know. So I'd just like to have you work with us with him so that we can get this done. That's the way I feel about it.
But you must also be aware that the computers are very outdated. It's terrible work with something so antiquated. They asked that that get improved. They asked for more people, and they weren't given more people. They weren't given the overtime that they requested. They weren't given them more space, as was just senior councilwoman just mentioned. They need more space. It's cramped. You've been there. It's cramped, isn't it? Isn't it ridiculous? So there are things that their policy and procedures is supposed to be updated, and that's being worked on as we speak. So there's a lot of things. Now, when you walk in, you're supposed to get a roadmap of what you need, and a checklist to make sure that you give them what they need to make sure that you can get your permit. Now, sometimes you lose that road map. Sometimes so you have to come look and see somebody else and get it all done again. But there's procedures that are in place already to try to make it easier for you. But if they had more space and they had more people and they had the overtime to catch up with what the backlog is, and they had just the new computer, so it would be simpler for them to get the information to you, that you can get it to them and get your permit, it'd be a much better place. But that hasn't taken place, and we're working on trying to get that done. Thank you for being here. I really appreciate your comments.
I think some of Mr. Dunn's, Councilman Dunn's statements are actually inaccurate. However, I think, since everybody seems to agree that we have problems in our building department, I don't know why nobody will agree with me that we should have an expert come in and tell us, yes, maybe we do need to hire more people. Everybody wants to obstruct. They don't want independent eyes coming into our building department.
Supervisor, I don't want to say this. You know that I know something, that when we had someone used to be brought in here, they came in here when they were vetted, they were not directly in place, and you know that. And I don't want to say it, you know it.
I don't know what was wrong with Ernst & Young. It's a nationally known company. I don't know how they could be not correct for this place. But they were vetted by a panel that selected them, and then it was killed by this town board. And with regard to space, I did shut down the current plans to expand the building department, because right now it's a DA investigation. Thank you, everybody. Have a great day.
Thank you.
I couldn't slip to speak in public, Judge.
Okay.
It wasn't handed in. And of course, my councilwoman is running. Councilman Dunn? Councilman Dunn, I have to ask. Councilman Dunn?
Yes?
Yes, I want to speak with you in public comment. Of course, my councilwoman is out. That's okay. But I'm going to put on a public statement anyway. Councilman Dunn, regarding the American flag, I have an issue. Okay, my brother, he's a retired chief of the United States Air Force. So I have attended many, many ceremonies where I witnessed great care and respect for the U.S. flag. I drive through the town of Hempstead, I drive through Nassau County, and I see a lot of flags that are tattered, torn, and dirty. Can there be some sort of resolution calling for flags that are displayed in front of businesses in the town of Hempstead, that they should be in good condition, not dirty, torn, and tattered? Would that be something that you would consider?
This federal, that's congressional use of American flags. Already addressed that. So what penalty there'll be if you don't do it correctly is your community tells you the VFW in my area and the American Legion goes to those businesses and says, come on, what are you doing? You know, we have, and I come from another town, more people we lost 29 guys in Vietnam from my hometown. We take it very seriously. The display of the American flag has been done properly with respect, and I thank you for that. And we are going to make sure that if you see something, say something.
So there's no sort of resolution that you could pass? No, it has to be like on a local level?
Well, you know what, they could make that law and copy what the federal government has already done in Congress, and maybe put a penalty for not displaying it properly with respect.
Okay, well, just something to consider, because it's not a good look for our country and our town. Thank you.
Will do, thank you.
You're welcome.
Now you can finish that.
Yes, you may. So my councilwoman is not here, but I just want to speak with her. I'm going to put her on public record in response to her enthusiasm regarding investment in sustainable businesses in East Meadow and Baldwin. I too share her enthusiasm regarding the investment in the sustainable businesses that are proposed for East Meadow and Baldwin, because we are one county, Hempstead, one Nassau County, and one Long Island. But my question to her was, or is, what investments, grants, and plans are on the horizon to bring investment in sustainable businesses to Uniondale, particularly south of Hempstead Turnpike? Uniondale is a hamlet that has languished for decades as a result of social inequality. And I want to ask her about the streetscaping project and what are the roadblocks that are impeding the completion of the streetscaping project on Uniondale Avenue.
If you give me the information, we'll look into it and I'll get back to you with an answer.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you, Ms. Jacobs. All right, everybody, have a nice day.